The CBS Radio Mystery Theater presents... Come in. Welcome. I'm E.G. Marshall, your host for another excursion into the dark and frightening world of the macabre. I've been presiding over these trips away from the ordinary world for a long time, and every one of them turns up a surprise. As you look around, you'll see that we're in New Hampshire, and this is Wheeler College. That pleasant older man sitting in his comfortable office is head of fine arts, and his name is Homer Knowles, a professor. Our mystery drama, The Figure in the Moonlight, was written especially for the Mystery Theater by Roy Windsor and stars Patricia Elliott and Paul Hecht. We live in two worlds, the real and the fantasy. Sometimes they overlap. When we sleep, our subconscious becomes active, and when we awake, we may discover that it has provided us with a solution to a problem, or with an inspiration. Maybe the expression, "let me sleep on it," acknowledges the power of our shadow mind. The subconscious is, of course, a fact. The extent of its power is unknown. For example, is it possible that subconscious thought exists and has force even after death? Let us consider that as we eavesdrop on Professor Homer Knowles late one snowy afternoon.
Come in, Ted, come in.
Huh. Am I late?
Oh, no. It's nothing important.
Good. Ben and I became so absorbed in what he calls the importance of continuity.
Ben... Oh, Ben Ware, of course.
Yes, one of the best graduate students we've ever had, Homer.
Oh, yes, exceptional.
Oh, what's this mundane subject you wanted to discuss?
A bequest to the college.
Ah, I like that. Who's bestowed what on us?
Mrs. Albert Pope?
Pope. Don't think I know her.
Oh, it's unlikely that you would. She died a few weeks ago and has left whatever art she owned to the college. Don't get your hopes up. She was a poor, simple woman.
Oh, a thoughtful gesture all the same, Homer. Unusual. You knew her, of course.
Yes, slightly. The college has paid her a pension for years. Her husband was superintendent of our fine arts building for a long time.
And you arranged it so her husband's pension would go to her. That's like you.
Oh, it's the only decent thing to do.
Of course. Sure it was.
Your irony is transparent.
So is your sentimentality. Now, all of us know it, Homer. And we respect you for it. And the bequest?
Would you pick it up for us, Ted?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Thank you. Look it over and evaluate it. There won't be many pieces. Photographs, prints, a watercolor or two. Nothing of value, probably.
Except to her.
I appreciate this, Ted.
I'm glad to do it.
If her things have no value, perhaps we should give them to the thrift shop at the hospital.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Who knows? She may have owned a masterpiece without knowing it.
Well, I doubt that. But you never know. The Popes lived up here for years. She just might have collected an early local artist. Well, look the stuff over and give me a report.
I'm on my way.
Is that you, Ted?
Hi, darling. Here, give me a hand.
Oh, now what have you dragged home?
The soul of Mrs. Albert Pope.
Give it to me in English, Professor.
No, I mean it. Here, take this old photo album.
All right.
Yeah, this big portfolio is heavy.
Where did you get all this junk?
Homer had me pick it up from Mrs. Pope, the late Mrs. Pope. She gave all this stuff to the college. I gave it a quick glance.
Find anything? You know my dream.
It won't come true this time, Diane. No, there's no treasure here. But there is one thing that's interesting. Here, let me hang up my coat and I'll show you.
But Ben's expected any minute. It's almost 7.
Oh, it is? Oh, I didn't realize it was so late. Oh, this will only take a second, Di. Now, come on. I want you to see this and take a look.
Hey! Oh, it's really quite lovely.
Yeah, it's pretty good engraving. All the other stuff has no real value. Reproductions, mostly Van Gogh. 2 of the sunflowers are Renoir.
She had good taste.
Yeah, and a lot of photographs. Ben might like them. He collects pictures of old New Hampshire houses.
Then he ought to have this engraving.
Hey, that's an idea. Well, what do you think of it?
I like it. That's a fine Victorian house and grounds. Whose house is it, do you know?
No idea. Yeah, it is a pretty good engraving. Clean lines, flagstone path leading up to a wide front porch, 3 floors. Nicely framed by firs. Look, the house plantings are very well done.
But?
No, you know as well as I do, Di. It really needs a figure in the foreground to give the picture a focal point. As it is, it's just an engraving of a house.
A beautiful house.
Yeah, but the engraving is only architectural, like a plan. Has no meaning. It's just a house.
Who's the artist?
I don't know. It's unsigned. Yeah. With a figure in the foreground, the engraving would come alive.
Well, Ben will still like it.
Well, there's no reason he shouldn't have it. Or some of the old photographs. He's a bug on the past. What he doesn't want, I'll take over to the hospital thrift shop. They can sell them.
It must be Ben.
I'll wash up and be right back, Di. You play host.
Hi.
Hey, come in.
Why, you look pretty, Diane.
Flattery earns you a cocktail. And thank you. Where did you get your manners? Most art students are reclusive.
Well, I'm absorbed by art, but I can also see beauty around me.
Oh, you're too much. Ted will be right out. He came home just a few minutes ago. Hey, look.
Oh, what's all that?
The aesthetic side of the late Mrs. Pope. Look it over and take what you want. I have to check on dinner. Oh, here's Ted.
Hello, Ben. What can I fix for you? The usual?
Yeah, please.
Well, why don't you sit down in front of the fire?
Who is Mrs. Pope?
I'll tell you all about her in a minute. Not that I know much more than you do. Here you are. White and as cold as a ski lift.
Half an hour and we eat.
Here you are, darling.
Thank you.
A toast.
Right on.
Here's to us. Who's like us? Damn few.
I'd love it. Where did you pick that up, Ben?
When I was in college in Chicago years ago.
Oh, yeah, I keep forgetting that you're from the Midwest.
Why did you abandon Chicago with its arts institute and the universities with their, excellent fine arts departments and come to this little cottage?
I love New Hampshire. And then there's Professor Knowles and Ted. They know everything.
Hardly, Ben.
Oh, more than I'll ever know.
You really like the climate?
Yeah, I really do. Real winter. Unspoiled forests, clean air, remoteness, the snow. All of it keeps your perspective straight.
Maybe yours. Mine freezes up. Give him the pictures, Ted.
Ah, yes. The Mrs. Albert Pope collection. She left that meager pile to the college, and, there's one picture you might admire. No. Stay where you are. It's quite a good engraving of some old mansion.
You collect pictures of old homes, don't you, Ben?
Yeah, I like them. They give me a sense of,
continuity?
Yeah, and stability.
Yeah, here we are.
Oh, wow, it's beautiful. That's a beautiful house.
Yep, it's a pretty good engraving. All it lacks is a figure in the foreground to give it a focal point.
No, there is a figure in the foreground.
No, wrong.
Oh, there is, really. Take a look.
Oh, but both Diane and I
Let me see.
There. You see? Next to the path. The figure of a man on his hands and knees crawling towards the house.
But I swear.
I'd swear, too. When you showed me the engraving, Ted, there was no figure.
Well, maybe you just glanced at it.
No. We looked at it under the light. There was nothing in the foreground.
Well, there is now. A man furtively crawling across the lawn toward the porch.
Ted?
Yeah, yes, darling?
Are you going to stay up? It's late.
Come on, sit down. Sit down for a minute, Di.
Oh, it's cold in here.
I'll toss another log on the fire.
Not for me. I'm ready for the down comforter.
Yeah, so am I, but I just can't get that engraving out of my mind.
We made a mistake, that's all. There's no question there's a figure in the foreground.
But there wasn't.
Well, I didn't think so either. But there is.
Well, I studied the thing. The foreground was empty.
So what?
So it's mystifying. I don't like that.
Can't you admit we made a mistake?
Yeah, I made lots of mistakes, but this wasn't one of them. I saw what I saw. Now, let's take another look at it.
Ben looked at us as if we were a little mental.
Yeah, well, I don't blame him. Now, come over by me, Di.
An eye check, right?
Right. It's gone.
Come on.
The figure of the man crawling toward the house. It's gone. Now, you tell me.
It wasn't there when we first looked at the engraving, and then it was there when you showed it to Ben Ware, and now nothing.
Well, you agree I haven't gone mental.
Well, if you have, so have I. How in the world do you explain it, Ted?
Oh, I can't.
Is there some kind of drawing technique?
No, Di. It's a plain, straightforward engraving. Well, Homer might know.
Well, call him up and let's take the picture over to him.
Oh, it's pretty late.
Only 10:30. You want to sit here and brood over the thing until you freeze to death?
Oh, I feel ridiculous.
I'll call him. He's only half a block away and he stays up late.
I don't know. This simply makes no sense.
Ted, you expect me to believe that the engraving had no figure in the foreground, and that then one appeared, and that now it's gone again?
Well, see for yourself, Homer.
Well, that won't do much good. I never saw the figure. Oh, this is just foolish, Ted.
Well, here, take a look at the thing.
Well, it's quite good. Not valuable, but well etched. The prize among the collection of Mrs. Pope.
Yeah, well, the rest is nothing. It's prints and a lot of photographs.
The house looks familiar to me.
Well, that's the clue. I mean, if we knew the history of the house, we might be able to explain this phenomenon.
Oh, phenomenon, my foot.
But honestly, Homer, the three of us saw what we saw.
Oh, let me see. I wonder if that could be the home of that young judge, long since dead, Now, what happened to him? Oh, yes, now I remember. He shot and killed a man for trespassing.
Good heavens.
Well, why the devil would Mrs. Pope have the engraving?
Now, who was the judge?
Well, I just can't remember. It was years ago. Maybe as many as 25.
Did you say he killed a man? Well, can you remember who? It might have made news.
Oh, not as much as you might think, Ted. It was an occurrence.
Murder is an occurrence?
Up here, a man's property is inviolate, Stan.
Homer, who was killed?
Oh, my goodness. I remember now. It was Albert Pope.
Aha. The Fine Arts Building
Yes, that's right. A man with a bad habit. When he went hunting, he wandered everywhere. He trespassed. The judge... I wish I could remember his name. Well, he warned Albert once, and the next time fined him and jailed him for a week.
And the third time, the judge shot and killed him.
Yes, that's right.
Incredible. And the judge lived happily ever after.
I don't know.
Well, that's some story, Homer.
It's pretty grim, but it has nothing to do with your disappearing figure.
All the same, I'd like to know the whole story.
Huh. You've aroused my curiosity. Let me check into it.
I'd appreciate it, Homer. You may smile at what we told you, but unless Di and Ben and I are deluded, that engraving has the power to change itself. I mean, it's weird.
The only explanation is supernatural.
As eminent a philosopher as Santayana wrote, there is nothing impossible in the existence of the supernatural. Its existence seems to me decidedly probable. Is that what we have encountered here? It seems impossible for a picture to change its composition, and yet three educated, rational persons maintain that the etching did change. Where this will lead us, I have no idea. But I will return shortly with Act 2. We've gotten ourselves into a byway in the strange world of the macabre. and it has led us to a small college town in New Hampshire and to an etching of an old mansion that seems to have the power to change its composition. There's no rational explanation for it. Is there an irrational one? The subject puzzles and disturbs Ted Morris, an assistant professor of fine arts. Perhaps the history of the house will reveal a secret, a clue. But even as he thinks it, he smiles in disbelief.
Oh, boy, I just for
Since when have you begun talking to yourself, Ted?
Oh, yes. Good morning, Ben.
My mother says persons who talk to themselves are crazy.
No, she's absolutely correct. I have gone over the edge.
I see. That's why you sit there behind your desk grading papers and mumbling to yourself?
Is that what I'm doing?
Yeah, that's what you were doing. What is it?
Ben, there is no figure of a man crawling across the lawn up to the house.
But we saw it.
No, it wasn't there when I first looked at the engraving. Then you picked it up, and there it was. And last night, I looked again. The figure was gone.
That's crazy.
Oh, we are. I showed it to Homer Knowles. He smiled, but, he's going to indulge me. He's going to track down the history of the mansion.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'd like to know the story. Yeah, any idea where the mansion is located?
No. But Homer did recall that it belonged to some judge, a despotic kind of guy. Now, it seems this Albert Pope was an inveterate trespasser. Finally, the judge blasted him. End of Albert. End of our building superintendent. No charge brought against the judge.
Wow. Jungle justice.
Yeah.
That's some story.
Well, there may be more to it. Homer's trying to find out. When he does, you're welcome to it, and to the etching. I know you like photographs and paintings of old houses.
Well, there's more to it than that, Ted. I don't know, for some odd reason, I'm sort of drawn to it.
What a pleasant surprise.
I haven't dropped in at a bad time, have I, Diane?
Come in, Homer. I'm just starting a fire.
Let me take your coat.
Thank you, my dear.
And the package?
No. I want to show you something. Said on engraving.
Had any luck about the history of the house?
I'll come to that. But, take a look at the thing.
I can't believe it.
Well. So I'm not crazy.
When you showed me the picture last night, there was no figure in it. Now, look there.
Yes. A figure crouching on the porch.
Very sinister. A creeping man. He vanished. And now he appears again, this time on the porch. You know, we're seeing something being acted out.
I refuse to believe it. Now, this is nonsense. It's a very old engraving. Changes in the atmosphere may account for these subtle changes. I can't explain it, but that must be it. And our imagination.
No, that won't do. We are not imagining what we can see. Now, I want to know about that house, the judge, and that creeping figure. Now, what have you learned, Homer?
The mansion belonged to a Judge Asa Lawrence, a young firebrand. Came to the bench in his 40s.
Where?
Earned his degree in Boston, went into practice in Orton, and became a judge in 1950. He had a rather heavy hand, really enforced the law.
And shot and killed Albert Pope.
Oh, no question about that.
Oh, he must have been mad.
No, he wasn't. The amateur deer hunters from Boston and New York still swarm all over the area during the seasons, and they shoot at anything that moves. Sometimes at each other.
And they can't read.
The no trespassing signs mean nothing to them. They've got their guns, and by George, they're going to shoot something. Yes, they're a menace. Well, Judge Lawrence fined them dizzy.
But he murdered Albert Pope.
Oh, he warned him time and time again. Fined and jailed him. But Albert did what he pleased.
And his wife became a widow. Anything else, Homer? What about the judge's mansion?
It burned to the ground. The judge died from smoke inhalation.
When? Recently?
No. It's about 3 years after he killed Pope.
And when did all this take place? Roughly?
I'd say about 1954.
So that's the story. Now, there's more to it than that, Homer. I would like to reconstruct the whole tragedy from Pope's death, to the fire in the mansion.
Well, for goodness sake, why?
Because there is something significant we don't know.
I think so, too. Something's been unfolding before our eyes. You know what I think?
Go on, Doc.
I think we've been watching the man who set fire to the judge's house.
Oh, my dear Diane.
No, it's an idea.
You're hallucinating, both of you.
What about the fire, Homer? Can we find out?
Well, I would imagine so. Someone in Norton may remember it.
What about the newspapers?
I don't think the Boston papers... Well, no, that's an idea. They might have carried a line or two about the judge's death. Let me check further. I'll leave the engraving with you.
Ted!
Oh, my. I simply will not believe it.
Yes. The figure on the porch has disappeared.
But look there. Do you see it? One of the front room windows is now open. Ted, dear, may I suggest we pack our bags and make our getaway from this forsaken spot?
Oh, it's got you, has it?
It's driving me up the wall. That engraving is, well, it's evil.
Oh, forget about it, darling.
How can I? How can you? We have to explain what's happened to it, Ted, or the whole thing will nag at us until we see ghosts in every corner. Do you believe in the supernatural?
No, of course not. I don't think I do. Who can explain everything? It's beyond me.
It means something. Something bad. I don't think you ought to give it to Ben. It might do him some harm.
Oh, nonsense. He's drawn to it.
He said that?
Yeah. Oh, I'll get it there.
Ben's drawn to the engraving. How odd.
Is this the home of the magic picture?
Oh, come in, Ben. Go easy on the magic picture talk, huh? Diane is terribly upset.
Oh.
Make yourself at home in the Institute for the Befuddled.
Anything new happened?
Yep, two things. Homer brought the engraving back, and there, as plain as day, was a figure crouching on the porch.
Then the figure disappeared, and there was an open window in the living room of the house.
This is really crazy, isn't it?
Oh, the engraving is yours, Ben. Homer said to give it to you.
Oh, well, thank you. And I'll thank him.
You don't want it, Ben. I think it's evil. It has turned back time to some previous awful event.
Well, that's a little hard for me to follow.
Well, radio sound, all those trillions of airwaves out there, right here in this room. Now, look, I once read or heard that maybe someday science could capture some of those never-ending sounds. They go like ripples when a pebble is tossed into a pond. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Science fiction.
Maybe not. Wouldn't you like to hear, Caesar speaking in the Forum, or Cleopatra, Disraeli, and any other great man or woman?
Yes, but airwaves are fact. I mean, what's that got to do with the changing engraving?
Well, could it be possible that here's the engraving of the house, and it's lovely and all that, and then something comes along to defile it, and it's somehow recorded?
Well, that assumes that the house is a living thing.
Well, isn't it? A house has its own character.
Now, this is too far-fetched for me, Diane.
Look, do you believe in the supernatural? I've already asked Ted.
Well, yes. I can't define what I mean by it, but insights come to me that I can't explain. Like, coming up here for graduate study, something compelled me to. There was some kind of intervention in me that led me here.
That's all I'm saying, Ben. That's it. There must have been some kind of intervention with the house, and it's recreating what it was. It has a mystery to reveal, or a tragedy to show us. I swear it.
So it's like a soap opera, huh? Tune in tomorrow to find out what happens next?
Yeah, except that they never end, do they?
This will end. We watch the picture. You watch it, Ben, if you really want to take it home, until the engraving has retold its story.
May I see the engraving?
Sure, it's over there on the table.
That entire bequest from Mrs. Pope may have been worthless, but now this engraving of hers.
Now what?
Well, Di must be right. The engraving's changed again.
What? The figure has emerged from the house and is halfway down the path. He's got a bundle in his arms.
No, look more closely, both of you. That is no bundle.
The man is carrying A small child.
Yes? Yes, who is it?
Ben Ware, Professor. I noticed your light, and
Oh, it's probably all right, Ben. I'm pleased to see you. It's pleasant when students drop in. Makes me think I'm still part of the living scene.
Oh, you're more than that, Professor. You're a living legend.
Oh, dear, I hope not. Come, sit down. Ah, you have the engraving.
Yes, Ted said I could have it.
Yes, of course. Perplexing, isn't it?
There's been another change in the engraving. There's a man leaving the house and carrying a small child in his arms.
The devil, you say. Now, what in the world can that mean?
No, we don't know, but Ted said you were going to check the newspapers.
Yes, so I am. A former student of ours is assistant editor of Boston newspaper. He'll check his morgue in the morning, but, oddly enough, he remembered something about Judge Lawrence. The house in the engraving burned down. Do you know that?
Yes, sir. I'm more interested in what happened earlier, at the time that Albert Pope was murdered.
Well, I do know a little about that, Ben. After Albert was shot and killed, his brother Steve arrived with murder in his eyes. Even before the funeral, the brother was threatening to kill Judge Lawrence.
But he didn't.
No. The judge died in the fire, and that was 3 years later.
Did the brother try to get even with the judge?
I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm interested in, Professor.
Well, why is that, my boy?
Because of the figure in the picture. Was it the judge who was running away with a child of his own?
You think the child was abducted?
Well, from the changes we've seen in the picture, a man sneaked into the house and came out carrying a child.
I see. Not likely to be the judge.
Did Judge Lawrence preside here?
No, in Orton, a few miles away.
Maybe I'll drive over there and ask some questions.
Someone's sure to remember the fire, but I don't think you'll learn much about the murder. Albert Pope lived here.
Yeah, but I might learn something about the judge. You know, how old he was when he died. Was he married? Did he have children? What's become of the survivors? The story doesn't end with that man sneaking out of the house.
Oh, perhaps not. If I learn anything from Boston, I'll tell Ted.
Yeah, I'll do the same if I learn anything in Orton.
I suggest that you begin in the general store. It's the gossip center. Enjoy your engraving.
I'm going to photograph it tonight.
You are? Well, for heaven's sake, why?
The old mansion burned down, remember?
Are you suggesting?
No, I like the etching. I just want to be sure I have a record of it. Just in case it disappears.
No matter what the outcome may be of the engraving that unexplainably altered itself, first to show a foreground figure, then an open window, and then the figure leaving the old mansion with a child in his arms. We're at a loss to rationalize this phenomenon. History may supply the answer. After Professor Knowles talks with that Boston newspaper editor, we may know more. I'll return with Act 3 shortly. You've heard of the poltergeist. That word is German for noise and ghost. Many will attest to visits by these noisy phantoms. They're noisy, all right. Rapping here and moving objects there. They exist. No question about it. Well, if they can manifest themselves as supernatural visitors, why can't we accept what we have already heard? An old engraving of a house alters itself, and what the beholder sees begins to piece together a tragic story of long ago. So far, we know of a murder, a death in a fire, and we have had a hint of an abduction. It is late the next day at Ted Morris's house.
Ben may stop by Homer if he returns early enough from Orton.
You know, he was correct about one part of the story, Ted. Ben suspected that the figure carrying the small child from the house was a kidnapper.
I knew it.
I spoke to a friend of mine in Boston late this morning.
The back issues covered the story.
And briefly, it's an ugly story.
Someone kidnapped the judge's child?
No, Diane, let's take it step by step. Huh?
Albert Pope was murdered. His brother Steve came up here from Chicago for the funeral. He was outraged at Judge Lawrence. And a week later, the judge's small boy, about 3 years old, was abducted.
The brother did it.
Well, that's what everyone assumed, but there was no proof. Steve Pope was arrested in Chicago, but he was freed for lack of evidence. But there is more to it than that, Ted. Whoever kidnapped the child committed murder.
No.
The governess was stabbed to death.
Good Lord. I wondered how a man could break into the house and walk away with a small boy without being detected.
And the judge's wife?
That's another part of this tragic story. She had died in childbirth. Perhaps that explains in part why Judge Lawrence was such a harsh man. He married late, and by the time he was 40, he'd lost his wife, and then his little boy was abducted.
What a tragic story.
Yes, I'm rather sorry I unearthed it.
And they never found a trace of the child?
None. The search went on for months. The loss, Judge Lawrence's 2 losses, seemed to break his spirit.
How is it possible for... No, I suppose it is possible. I was about to ask how a child can just vanish.
Well, in a big city, it's not all that difficult. The child is abandoned at an orphanage or at a home.
But they'd report it, Ted.
Well, they should, but just read the papers. There's always a story of an abandoned child.
Well, there's the whole story.
Yeah, and the etching recreated the facts.
Yes, the essential ones.
The story without an ending. Has this Steve Pope ever been back here? Or did you ever speak to Albert's widow about all this?
No, but I have been wondering how Mrs. Pope came to acquire the engraving. My guess is that she simply bought it.
Yeah, but why would Mrs. Pope want a picture of the home of a man who killed her husband?
She may have wanted it as a reminder of her husband's murder.
Yes, as a talisman. Albert was a happy-go-lucky fellow. His wife was somewhat hard.
Yeah, with a grim sense of humor.
Homer, one more question. Can we find a picture of Judge Lawrence? A photograph? Even one of him in his robes?
Oh, I should think so.
Would you ask your Boston friend to mail us one?
I should think there'd be an official picture of the judge in the Orton courthouse.
Of course.
Why'd you want it, Di?
I'd rather not say. You might laugh. Let me say only that, I've got a hunch.
I really must thank Professor Knowles. He's gone to a lot of trouble about the story behind the engraving.
Well, it's been diverting, Ben. Not that anyone will believe it.
Well, some old codgers in Orton confirm it, Ted. The story, I mean.
I meant the engraving that kept on changing its composition.
Oh, no. There's no explanation for that.
Something activated it.
Yeah, and still is, Diane. The thing's changed again.
Now what?
Last night, I shot a photograph of the etching. I had a hunch that something might happen. It did. I brought it along to show you.
Oh, the etching is scorched.
Yep. That's from the fire that burned down the house.
So, the cycle is completed. There's an end to it.
And somewhere out there is a small boy, perhaps dead and forgotten, or an alive, grown man. Oh, I'd certainly like to talk to Steve Pope.
Well, I wouldn't. I've had enough of the engraving. Now, look, all this took place 25 years ago. Please, let's drop it.
You drop it. You and Ben and Homer, you have no imagination. I'm going to do some research on my own.
Your research, darling, is based on hunch.
And hunch is intuition.
What's your hunch, Diane?
It's so far-fetched that even if it's correct, I don't think I'll tell.
It'll come to you across a crowded room?
Hey, that's it.
What's what?
That line from South Pacific in the song, of course.
What are you talking about, Diane?
How does one fall in love?
I don't remember.
Come on, don't be funny. I'm serious. Isn't there some magical attraction that strikes two persons at the same time? You know in a glance that you're meant for each other. That's corny, but you know that you're intertwined in every way.
No, but what the devil has falling in love got to do with the engraving?
You don't see it, Ben?
Nope.
Well, I do. I know the answer, and I'm going to prove it.
Now, Diane, why won't you tell me?
Because if I'm wrong, I'd look like a fool, and I don't want to cause embarrassment.
Would you give me a hint?
I'd rather not, Ted. You'll just have to wait until tomorrow.
Well, have you some wild theory about Steve Pope?
No, that's not it. If the police couldn't convict him, I sure can't. Oh, he did it all right.
I suppose the police could check all the orphanages and adoption homes in Chicago, but they probably did that already. And who knows if the little boy was dropped in Chicago?
I don't know. That's a good point.
Well, of course, he wouldn't have been dropped in a small city. A person can be anonymous only in a big one.
I still think Chicago.
More intuition, huh?
Oh, you make fun of it, Ted. But you've had hunches, haven't you?
Yes, I must admit that I have. But I can't imagine what you have in mind. Well, now, what's this that you have to do tomorrow?
I'm going to the courthouse.
Oh, yes, to try to find a picture of Judge Lawrence. What else?
I may make a long-distance telephone call.
You've lost me.
There's something I have to find out, but I don't quite know how to go about it. I don't want to come right out and ask a blunt question.
Oh, since when? You won't give me an inkling of what you're up to?
All right. Just an inkling.
Shoot.
Think about the engraving.
Go on.
You brought it home from Mrs. Pope's. You said it lacked a figure in the foreground to give it a focal point.
That's right, I did.
When did the figure appear?
The second time I looked at it.
Think about what you just said, my dear Ted, and you'll have the clue. Ben, come in. Oh, what a grisly day.
Oh, I love it.
You have to be crazy, but thanks for coming to my rescue. Drop your coat and come in. I have hot coffee.
Great.
Ted had to take the car.
I know. He's giving a lecture in Putney. I'll be glad to drive you to Orton.
Oh, that's very kind of you, Ben. Do sit down. This will warm you up.
Ooh, thank you.
Are the roads passable?
Yeah, sure. And Orton's not far away. Nice little town. I had a good visit there. Did I tell you I saw the judge's former estate?
No. The house is gone, I suppose.
It leveled years ago, and the rubble's been hauled away. The land's been developed.
Who owns it now, do you know?
Some real estate company, Country Homes. They've sold off a number of 3-acre estates. The judge owned about 50 acres. Must have been something back in the 50s. Beautiful property, facing the river.
Judge, landowner, artist. Quite a man. And he was only 40 when he died. When you receive your Master of Fine Arts, what then, Ben? Back to Chicago?
Oh, no. No, New Hampshire's in my blood. I hope to teach here at the college or at one of the nearby prep schools.
And your parents? Wouldn't they like to have you closer by?
Well, they've never understood me.
Oh, no, not another one of those.
Oh, no, of course not. No, they're wonderful. They wanted me to take a good job in something in Chicago. You know, get married, have children, visit every week. You know, the conventional.
And along you come and you like art with a capital A.
Yeah, right. They shook their heads, but they never stood in my way. They're great. You'll meet them at commencement. They know all about you and Ted.
How do you explain your interest in fine arts? Have you ever tried?
No, I can't. There's nothing in their background to suggest an interest of that kind.
Oh?
My dad's a shipping clerk in a big book company. Mom's just a housewife.
Any brothers and sisters?
No, they never could have any children of their own.
After you mean?
No. What I said.
Then?
I was adopted.
Oh, wow, what a drive.
How did the lecture go?
Beautifully. Did Ben drive you over to Orton?
Yep.
You found what you wanted?
Yep.
Hey, would you knock off the country dialect and tell all? No. Wait a second. You have been devious, haven't you?
Yep.
Would you please stop that? Now, you insisted that I drive our car because, and don't say yep, or I'll slug you, you wanted to be with Ben. Yep.
Oh, Ted, you're marvelous.
Yes, and you're replaceable. Do you know that? Now, stop being coy. Did you find a picture of Judge Lawrence?
I found more than that. My intuition was correct.
Well, tell all.
Not so fast. Telephone Homer and insist he come right over this minute. I want both of you to hear what I have to say. And then, and I'm not joking, Ted, we have a vital decision to make.
So that's the tragic Judge Asa Lawrence. Handsome man.
Oh, is that all you see, Homer? Ted?
Should we see something more?
Study the photograph. Make allowance for the old-fashioned hairstyle. Now, doesn't he remind you of someone?
Oh, my. It's the image of Ben Ware.
Why, so it is. What an astonishing coincidence.
Oh, coincidence. Why do you think Ben was, well, as he said, drawn to the engraving? Why does he, a young man from Chicago, love New Hampshire? And, Ted, it was when Ben picked up the engraving that it began to change.
That's astonishing.
And wait until you hear this. Ben was adopted. Judge Asa Lawrence was Ben's father, and Ben was the little boy kidnapped soon after Albert Pope's death, taken to Chicago, abandoned, and adopted by Ben's foster parents, the Wares.
Incredible.
But true. So, now, gentlemen, what do we do?
I don't know.
Homer?
Conceal your discovery, Diane. Ben's a happy young man, and Ware is a good name. If we tell him what we know, his life would be violently disrupted. The publicity would be unnerving. We'd cause trouble for Ben's foster parents, and gain what? Nothing.
But he'd inherit...
Oh, after almost 25 years, Ted, I doubt if there's anything to inherit. That's my advice.
I agree with it, Homer.
Yep, so do I. I hope the judge would understand.
So, once again, we complete an odd tale with an ending you may wish to challenge. It is a hackneyed proverb that states that the violent by violence fall. But hackneyed or not, it's true. Frontier justice draws retribution. That is the tragic moral to be drawn from what we have heard. I'll return shortly. In the strange scheme of things, each of us is an unsolvable mystery. Who are you, really? Even if you can trace your roots back 1,000 years, what preceded them? We are the creatures both of heredity and of environment, and what stirs in our subconscious cannot be exactly explained. Judge Lawrence shot and killed a man. His young son was kidnapped. The judge died in a fire. Why? Can anyone really explain that sequence of events? Our cast included Paul Hecht, Patricia Elliott, Tony Roberts, and Ralph Bell. E.G. Marshall inviting you to return to our Mystery Theater for another adventure in the macabre. Until next time, pleasant dreams.
The CBS Radio Mystery Theater presents... G. Marshall. Many of the tales I bring you could be called Gothic. This has become an umbrella word to cover so many things. The true Gothic was a story about horror beyond belief. Ghouls and gargoyles, the unexplained and the unexplainable, creatures from a world beyond comprehension. But my favorite Gothic tales are the ones which only seem to borrow from that world. Stories in which the explanation lies in this mundane one we occupy. Gothic mysteries, perhaps they should be called. This is one of them. Our mystery drama, The Deathly White Man, was written especially for the Mystery Theater by Ian Martin and stars Betsy Palmer. The Roosevelts are one of the oldest families in the United States. Linda Barclay, on the other hand, although she can trace her lineage as far back as most of us care to, is a product of the Middle West. Her father's job brought him east to the accident that killed him and crippled his wife, making her totally dependent on Linda for the rest of her life. When her mother finally died, Linda found herself alone and without money. That's why she answered the mysterious advertisement, which has led her to the terrifying meeting with the Roosevelts and the curse of their history.
Well, you're younger than I might have expected, Miss Barclay.
That's something I'm scarcely able to do anything about, Mr. Roosevelt.
And I'm not quite sure this would be the right job for you. My wife is, well, after her fall, she's more than ever an invalid.
But that's what I'm used to. That's what my mother was. Ever since I was 15, the carriage overturned on a bend in the road, and my father was killed, and my mother pinned under the wheel. She never walked again. I had to lift her, carry her. I'm very strong, and I've studied nursing, even if I don't have a degree.
Oh, yes, my dear girl. You remember all that was in the letter when you replied to my advertisement.
You don't believe me?
Of course I do, but what is concerning me at the moment is not so much how good you would be for my wife, but...
But what?
Yes, how good this job would be for you. Or bad.
I don't quite understand, Mr. Roosevelt.
Well, for many reasons we live, that is, my family lives quite a bit outside the city on an island, very isolated. My wife had a difficult time when our son was born, and in recent years her mental health has been, well, she retrogresses year by year.
Oh.
She can be very difficult at times, especially now since her injury. It's so much more difficult for her now that she can't... Now that her mobility is impaired because of what happened, she mustn't... No. I'm afraid you'd have to be a kind of jailer, too, and make sure that she keeps to her own quarters and... Very well, then. Let's see how it works out. How soon can you leave?
As soon as I can pack. By tonight.
No. I shall drive up by carriage tonight myself. I need a little time to prepare my wife and the household for your arrival. You can take the train up tomorrow to Coscob. My housekeeper's son, Jason, will meet you at the train. His name is Jason Greaves.
Is it a large menage?
No, just Mrs. Greaves, my wife, Jason, a cleaning woman, and a maid or so, and myself, of course, when I'm there. Business holds me a good deal to the city. Now, do you need money? No, better than that. Here are some traveling expenses.
$50? Well, that's far more than enough.
Well, we can straighten things out once you get to Broomwagon.
Where?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's the old Dutch manor that we live in, built over 3 centuries ago.
Wow. How did Mrs. Roosevelt injure herself?
Why, she fell down a flight of stairs. We don't know why. There were quite severe head injuries, and she's now confined to a wheelchair.
Was it the way he said it? Was it just my imagination? Or was it some extension of a secret knowledge that he didn't want to reveal to me? For just a fleeting second, I had the feeling of rat feet scampering through dark and dank cellars. And so it was, on the following day, I found myself on the wheezing, puffing, somehow very self-important New Haven train on the way to Coscob.
I beg your pardon, is this seat taken?
Oh, no, it isn't. But
the coach isn't very crowded. You consider me a masher?
Well, after all...
You don't know the New Haven. How quickly the coaches fill up. In no time, we shall be at 125th, and then in quick succession, St. Mary's Park, Tremont Avenue, Bruckner Boulevard, Pelham Parkway, and 100 others I might name. And each station, pouring onto the train, the flotsam and jetsam who are fleeing the city.
And your endeavor, since the car is practically empty at the moment except for us, is to protect me from this possible flotsam and jetsam.
Not at all. I just happen to think you're the most attractive woman I ever remember seeing, and I'll happily make up any excuse to sit with you.
Well, I really can't think of one that's good enough.
No, come on. How far are you going?
Not nearly so far as you might like. Coscob.
Well, now there's a coincidence. The same stop as myself. I'm on my way up to, actually, it's a highly penitential journey. I'm on the way up to see my mother. If you know Coscob, you should know or have heard of my mother. Her name is Mrs. Carter Roosevelt.
I looked at the handsome young man standing beside me, his gloves and his fedora held casually, but so stylishly. His hair a light brown and wavy, his eyes a deep, almost steel blue. And as I looked, a wave of what? Anticipation, pleasure, excitement, or perhaps something even stronger welled up in me, constricting my throat.
Did you hear me?
Yes, of course.
I get the impression you did recognize my mother's name.
Oh, indeed I did.
Then do I pass muster, and may I sit down?
I'm sorry. Please do sit, Mr. Roosevelt.
At last. What a relief.
I didn't mean to keep you standing so long.
My dear young lady, it's no relief to be off my feet. I was swept from them the moment I saw you. The relief is that you did not deny me your company.
I could scarcely do that to my employer's son.
What?
I've been engaged by your father to be nurse to your mother at Broomwagon. My name is Linda Barclay. Didn't your father tell you about me?
My father and I, Miss Barclay, are not on speaking terms. You said nurse? Tell me, is my mother worse? What does she need a nurse for?
Well, I understand she had a fall.
Mother? That's strange. A fall. How? Who was with her?
I really don't know the details. I believe Mrs. Greaves or her son Jason found her.
Mrs. Greaves? Is she back? What happened to Bunty?
Bunty?
Bunty, yes, Bunty. She was our housekeeper all the years I was growing up. She was almost more of the... Mrs. Bunter, her name was. She was a darling. Did she die?
I don't know.
I hope not. And my mother, how badly hurt is she from the fall?
I can't answer. I believe she had an injury to her head and is in a wheelchair.
Oh, no. A moment or so ago, after I met you, I wanted this poky old train to take all the time in the world or even break down. Now I can't wait for it to get to Broomwagon. I have a ghastly feeling old ghosts are abroad again. If you'll excuse me, I think I shall repair to the bar car.
As abruptly as he had appeared, he was gone. I remained looking after him for a long while, the passing countryside forgotten as my mind was filled with speculation. Jason Greaves was taller than my employer's son and heavy and dark and powerful looking. But his teeth had been startlingly white against his swarthy complexion as he greeted me with a smile that faded as quickly as it had come when he saw Mr. Roosevelt Jr. Now, riding in a carriage from the station, I was painfully conscious of powerful undercurrents of feeling between these two men. It was obvious that they disliked each other, but it seemed to be more from instinct than from acquaintance.
Oh. There we are. And here we are.
That's Broomwagon over there on the island, perched high on the rocks.
But it's a real island. open water all around. Well, what happened to the bridge? Must we go by boat?
Well, Jason, must we, or is it out of service again?
No, Mr. Roosevelt. I keep it in service or out of service as is indicated. Excuse me a minute.
Where's he gone?
Oh, you'll see, to the bridge house over there. One at each end of the bridge can be operated from either side.
I don't see any bridge.
You see what looks like a dock? Over on the island side.
Yes.
Yep, now watch it. It's hinged in the middle and operated partly by hydraulics, partly by the set of the tide, and part by counterweights. See? Look at that. It opens just like a huge arm. And when it's straight, it reaches from shore to shore. Some people, like my father, who belongs back in the Middle Ages, must have their precious privacy at all costs. Look at that nonsense. It's ingenious, isn't it?
Why, it's incredible.
Like the man who spawned it. And the rest of our private brood, whom you are about to meet. Unless you want to fly now while you still have the chance, Miss Barkley.
I don't know what you mean.
I'm not sure I do myself. It's just a feeling I have about my dear ancestral birthplace. So, the damn thing still works, Jason.
As you can see, Master Ted, as long as you know how to handle it. Hey! Up there, boys.
Don't look so scared,
I'm
Linda.
not scared.
Jason, why the devil, if you knew Miss Barkley was coming, even if you didn't know about me, didn't you leave the bridge in place?
Mr. Roosevelt's orders. It's never left in place, except when it's to be used.
By whom?
By whoever is authorized.
But the question really is, old Beetlebrow, what is its real purpose? To keep the public out, or to shut the family in?
I slid a sideways look at this handsome young man beside me, whose moods changed like a chameleon. And inside, I felt a cold and icy shudder. I wanted to cry out, "Take me back!" But we were already over the bridge and on our way up the steep driveway that wound its way up to that great, dark house. In the gathering dark, it loomed like some huge monster, and I had a feeling of terror lurking in and around it, and unnamed things that cried out in the night. Things that I was to hear and see, but it was too late to turn back.
Dear me. Now mark you, the ladies in these old Gothic mysteries did have a penchant for, or a habit of, overstatement. But in Linda's case, well, I shall leave you to judge that for yourselves when I return with Act 2. One element is never missing from all true Gothic tales: the house. That gloom-shrouded mansion in whatever special guise it appears. Broomwagon. High on a rocky island, barely separated from the Connecticut coastland, which some ancient Roosevelt ancestor built. Massive stone and mortar, it is intimidating before one enters it, and even more so after one is inside.
The first night, I didn't meet my patient. Mrs. Greaves, the housekeeper, served us all dinner, and we retired early. My room was on the second floor, right next to Mrs. Roosevelt's bedroom. Mrs. Greaves had told me, but quite a way beyond it as you went down the hall. I had stopped for just a moment in curiosity outside my room to the patient's door, and then quickly, ashamed of myself, moved to my own room and had just entered when I heard the sound of a door closing and a key in the lock. I looked out, and Mr. Ted Roosevelt was in the hall.
Oh, I'm sorry, Linda. Did I disturb you?
No, well, just the sound of the door attracted my attention.
I was with, my mother.
How is she?
Asleep. You look a little strange.
It's nothing, just that Well, nothing.
Come on, you can't fob me off like that. What is it?
Oh, silly. I thought you came from that door on the other side of the hall.
That? No, scarcely. That goes to the third floor in the turret rooms. Part of the house that's been shut off for years. Nobody uses that door.
I'm sorry. It was just an impression.
Linda, trust me. Believe me, I may be the only one you can in this house.
What is... Oh, it's a dream. That's all a dream. I remember waking up that first night at Broomwagon, somewhere far away as from another world, and yet I knew it was in the house. There was this terrible, agonizing animal sound. Alone in that strange, dark room with the massive oak chests and the high, ornate wardrobes pressing in from the walls, I could feel the panic, bitter as bile, in the back of my throat. But either it was a nightmare, or I was worn out from excitement and the long journey, for suddenly it was morning, and the sun was streaming in.
Oh, mercy, child, you startled me. Oh, you're up early, surely.
Well, I couldn't sleep.
Why?
Oh, the excitement in a new place, I suppose. You know, new surroundings.
Oh, is that all?
What more should it be?
You didn't hear anything?
What sort of thing?
Oh, anything out of the ordinary.
Well, I was half asleep in the middle of the night, and I heard I don't know how to describe it, even if I really did hear it.
Oh, it was probably a bad dream. This musty old house produces a lot of sounds. Perhaps it was the madam.
No, it sounded farther away than that.
Oh, you can't rightly tell. It's echoey, like a tomb. You never know what you're hearing or where it's coming from. Well, I have coffee on and bacon frying. Will you have eggs?
Just some juice and coffee and toast is enough for me.
Stomach a little queasy, huh?
Yes.
Well, I'm not surprised. Look, this is no place for a girl like you. Pick up your skirts and run while you have the chance.
While she has the chance for what, Mrs. Graves?
I didn't know you were there, Master Ted.
I'm sure you didn't. Because weren't you advising Miss Barkley to get out of here before she's even found out what the job is all about?
Oh, not exactly. Oh, but you've seen your mother. It's a very difficult job for a young girl, and
Whatever you want, Mrs. Greaves, I want her to stay. And my father's engaged her. You and your son are the ones I'm surprised to see back here.
Well, it's where I belong.
I'll know better about that soon. Come on. Let's have breakfast. While you're getting it, I'll take Linda up to Mother.
Shall I bring up Mrs. Rensevelt's tray?
No, Linda can come and get it when she feels like eating. If, you wouldn't mind, Linda.
Oh, of course not. It's why I'm here, to serve her.
The only good reason I can think of why you should be. Come on. Let's go meet the lady.
I don't know what I expected, but certainly not what I saw. A bright, pert little woman with eyes as bright and darting and alive as a bird, who may have been in a wheelchair, but didn't look confined to it at all. At least, that was my first impression. But it didn't take long to change it. It was all a mask. This was a woman broken by life, terrified of something total and nameless, locked in a silent cage where no birds could sing, not even herself.
Mother, it's Ted again.
She's trying to say something, Ted. What?
I don't know. I wish to God I did. Mother, I want you to meet Miss Linda Barkley. Yes, she's come to take care of you.
How do you do, Mrs. Rensefeld? I hope I can be of help. Is there anything I can get you? That's right. Yes, to help you. That's as far as our conversation went. Just that one possible word, and it terrified me because I wasn't sure of its meaning. Did she mean just that she was glad to have someone give her physical aid, or was it a cry of despair? Or was it my imagination being too lively? At any rate, Ted didn't seem to share my apprehensions as he walked me downstairs so that I could fetch the tray for Mrs. Rensefeldt's breakfast.
This damn flagstone staircase, dangerous as hell. I don't know why my father would never let these steps be carpeted.
Is this where your mother fell?
I don't know. It's all a bit vague. A lot of things vague around here.
Your mother, did you get the impression that she's scared of something?
Well, wouldn't you be in her condition? Just take care of her. Stay with her at all times, and I'll take care of you.
Are you going to be staying?
At least until my esteemed male parent gets back here where he belongs. Excuse me?
Oh, is the madam ready for breakfast?
Linda can get it for her and her own and take them up. I want to talk to you for a moment.
I'll prepare the breakfast.
Mrs. Greaves, what happened to Bunty?
Why, she was a very old woman after all, Master Rensefeldt. She just died.
How?
In her sleep. We found her dead in her bed.
We? Who is we?
Well, actually, it was Jason.
Jason? How could he find her? What was Jason doing here?
Well, your father had been nice enough to hire my son for general work, you see, and he was living in. Well, one morning, Bunty wasn't up bright and spry as usual, so he went up to her room, as I know the story, for of course I wasn't here, and there she was, laid out, sweet and restful, but quite dead.
I wish I'd known. It was quite a shock to me to learn it this late.
Oh, but I thought you did. Jason said you were up here the very night she died in Cascade.
Oh, I was, but the damn bridge was sewed up tight. I couldn't seem to attract anyone's attention. So I had to go back to New York.
Oh, well, didn't your father tell you?
My father and I haven't talked since... Yeah, perhaps you're right. I suppose family skeletons are best left in the closet. Except...
Except what?
They ought to be kept in the family and not involve any more people than already have to live with them.
I couldn't help overhearing most of the conversation, and especially that last. For while I kept myself busy at the stove, my eyes glued to making toast and eggs and so forth, I was only too aware that Ted's eyes, at least, were looking towards me. What is it they're all afraid of, I kept thinking to myself. Not only then, but through the rest of the day and the days that followed. Until a special night. Not so much later, when I woke up in my own bed hearing...
Yes.
What is it?
I saw you walking the garden night. Bernard, help me. Help.
I was ashamed of myself, but it was a primitive reaction. Above me, in a dream or in waking, had loomed a face from the churchyard or the grave. Parchment white, drained of blood. Was it vision or reality?
You all right?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Well, what happened?
I don't know how to say it. There was someone or something here, pale white as a ghost and not quite human.
That's a bad dream.
What else?
I'm sorry. You must be right. It's just... where's Ted? I mean Mr. Rensefeldt.
Ted? I don't know. Right at this moment, I guess it's something we'd all like to know.
So there we have it. The basic of the Gothic premise. What has this sweet, innocent young girl got herself entangled in? What web of mystery and death? And how can she handle it? Or at least extricate herself before it's too late? I shall return shortly with Act 3. all good Gothic mysteries, it is question time now. How did Mrs. Bunter, the former housekeeper, really die? Is Ted Roosevelt as charming and desirable a man to love as Linda would like to believe? Or does he pose a threat to her? Where is Mr. Roosevelt? And what is the specter that haunts Linda, either in reality or in her dreams?
The following days were the strangest of my life. There seemed to be a conspiracy of silence about Broomwagon. Poor Mrs. Roosevelt was held helpless, unable to speak, though often watching her eyes, I was sure she wanted to. For days now she had been confined to her bed. Ted had disappeared mysteriously, and I even had the idea that Jason and his mother didn't know whether he was on the island or if he wasn't, how he had gotten to the mainland. I had no further visits from the white man or dreams, and I went about my daily tasks in a sort of stupor, till at last I couldn't stand it, and I followed Jason down into the cellar one day.
Who is it?
It's me, Jason. Linda.
Oh. What are you doing down here?
Nothing. I just wanted to talk to you.
Did you have to follow me to the cellar?
No, but I haven't had a chance to see you alone, and I was curious.
Curious about what?
I'm only human, curious about all of this strange old place.
Why pick the cellar?
I didn't. You did. And I'm just as curious about all the upper floors.
Oh, why?
Just normal interest. Doesn't anyone ever go up there? Why are they all closed off?
Saves on the heat bill.
All right. Is that why the door is locked?
How do you know it is?
I tried it.
Why?
Well, the first night that I was here, I thought
Yes?
But I thought I saw Ted, Mr. Roosevelt Jr., coming from that door.
Well, did you now? And why would he be going up there?
Well, maybe to visit someone? Jason, is there someone else up there or living in the house, someone that I haven't met?
What? I don't know what you mean.
I don't understand. I'm really quite level-headed normally, but this man, the man with the parchment face and the snow-white hair, the one who sometimes wanders at night.
You're not sounding very level-headed now.
Oh, I guess not. Oh, I am sort of scared.
Well, then, Linda, want to take my advice? Get out. Get out while the getting's good.
Yes, that's what your mother said.
My mother isn't always so smart, but if she warned you off, then she was.
But what do I have to be afraid of?
I'll let you answer that question for yourself, since you were the one who brought it up.
I just can't walk out without seeing it. Where is Mr. Roosevelt Sr.? Doesn't he ever come here?
He'll be here at the end of the week, but if I were you, I wouldn't wait for him.
Why not? I have to be paid.
Jason, is Miss Barkley down there with you?
Yes, Mom, what is it?
It's Mrs. Roosevelt. She's having some kind of a fit or something. I think she needs her nurse.
As I hurried up the stairs with Mrs. Greaves, I sensed that her summons was not as urgent as it seemed to be. So I took the opportunity to ask a few questions I hadn't had a chance to.
It's just that I'm so worried about the poor little thing.
Mrs. Greaves, Ted, Master Roosevelt, when I first met him, said that he was surprised that you were back. You worked here before?
Oh, dear me, yes. I started out as the upstairs maid when we had a whole proper staff here with a butler.
But you left.
Well, I had my first... Jason to bring up, and when his father left us, I had to be home with him.
You started to say you're first. Do you have another child?
Oh, no, I had one born who was dead to me. Oh, but here we are, and you'd better have a look at them, madam.
I went in to Mrs. Roosevelt with so many questions I would have liked to have asked unanswered. I found her in physically acceptable shape, but nervous, and she seemed to want to be alone with me. Everything under control, Mrs. Greaves. I'll stay with her now.
She is a bit much for a little slip of a girl like you. I can handle her if you want to go.
Everyone seems in such a hurry to get rid of me.
Oh, I didn't say so.
You intimated it, and both Jason and Ted have said so flatly. Why am I not wanted?
Well, Maybe they were thinking of you and your well-being.
Why, am I in some danger? You don't answer. Is the ghost, or whoever he is, the one that lives upstairs?
What do you know about upstairs?
Nothing yet.
Well, then leave it. Forget it. And if you won't go, then mind your own business.
I feel like Alice in Wonderland, curiouser and curiouser. Oh, Miss Rensterfeld, did you want something?
Where? My son?
Oh, I don't know where he is. I'm sorry.
No, Mother.
Not after what, dear? I'm sorry, I don't understand.
You don't know my son.
With a sigh, she sank back on the bed. I took her pulse, checked her blood pressure, her heart. All normal. She was just quietly and simply asleep. But in checking her pulse, a large old-fashioned key fell from her hand. I waited till that night to use it where I suspected it would fit. Just as I thought, it opened that mysterious door that led to the upper floors. I searched through the cobweb-strewn rooms and at length up one last small flight of stairs to the turret room. The door was open. The room was empty, but the signs that someone had lived there for a long, long time were everywhere. I suddenly had a searing vision of that poor white thing that had come to me in the night.
Looking for someone, Linda?
Oh, Jason, what are you doing here?
Now, that's really my question, isn't it? But you don't have to answer, I will. Looking for Ted Renserfeld, weren't you?
Ted? No, why? Is he back?
Oh, he never went away.
I don't understand.
You weren't supposed to. But you had to keep sticking your nose into everything, didn't you?
I knew it wasn't a dream. There was a man, that strange, deathly white man, wasn't there?
That's right. The real Ted Renserfeld. Last of the Renserfeld line.
Well, what about the Ted Renserfeld that I met on the train?
Oh, you mean my half-brother?
I don't know what I mean. I'm so confused.
All right, then, Linda, let me put you straight. 27 years ago, my mother was a maid in this house. I was only a few years old and boarded out. My mother couldn't take care of me herself. She had to work to support me because my father had died. Mrs. Renserfeld was carrying her first child, and my mother was carrying a child at the same time. It's the mad fancy of some random god that Mrs. Renserfeld went full term to bear a monster. While my mother had her child early, and he was perfectly healthy.
You mean that strange white man is actually the real Ted Renserfeld?
That's right. And the child my mother bore became the Ted Renserfeld you find so irresistible.
But how?
Oh, my dear, given most of the money in the world and proper isolation, anything can be accomplished. My half-brother simply replaced the idiot, for a price, of course.
And the other child?
Should have been strangled at birth. But Mrs. Renserfeld wouldn't hear of it, so he was hidden away.
Hidden away? To molder into dust in this prison here? Oh, the poor man. No wonder he's as pale as a ghost. But what's happened to him? What have you done with him?
Just moved him to the cellar, near the scene of action. And besides, he'd grown much too crafty about escaping from upstairs.
Well, now, what do you mean, the scene of action?
It's all coming to a head, my dear. It's too bad you had to get involved. I told you to get out. However, it doesn't matter now. It'll all be over by tomorrow night.
What will all be over?
Come along with me. I'm taking you to the cellar to join some friends.
No, I don't want to go to the
I
cellar.
could lug you there bodily, but why make the effort? Alive, I'd have to fight you, and dead, you're only weight. Oh, yes, Linda. There is a Santa Claus who brought me this for Christmas. It's a gun. Oh, now, don't make me use it, please.
Obediently, I descended all the stairs from the turret room to the cellar, and then deeper to the sub-cellar. There was a big cave there with a harbor that looked out to the sea, and a large motor cruiser was moored at a deep water dock deep in the cave, almost directly under the house. There were some men in the cockpit, and one heavily bearded one who slung himself ashore with an easy cat movement and came to us.
We've got too much writing on this to take any chances. Take the girl and put her with the others.
The man with the beard took me to a door, opened the bar, and shoved me in. It was sort of a marine storage room, windowless with no way out except the door, and I was not alone. With me was that deathly white man and Ted, the man I knew as Ted Roosevelt.
Good Lord, Linda, they've got you too. Why?
Why, you?
Yes, poor gentle thing. He doesn't understand what's happening.
But what is happening, Ted?
Oh, I don't know where to begin. Jason's been blackmailing my father. Well, the man I always thought was my father till I uncovered the family secret.
And when you found it out, he made you a prisoner?
The world's prize sucker. I came home to verify some suspicions I've had for years and was careless enough to let my mother, my real mother, Mrs. Greaves, put some knockout drops in something I drank before I went to bed. I woke up here with my, what is he, brother in misfortune.
What can be home?
The poor thing. How could anyone hurt him?
How could anyone hurt him more? But Linda, he has less to worry about than you and I. We've got to get out of this.
What do we have to worry about?
My father.
What?
The man who wants to think of me as his son. Can you imagine this nonsense? This rage for immortality. This crazy passion to have the line carried on as if we were an ancient line of kings. Carter Roosevelt, above anything else, must have an heir to satisfy him. And it can't be this poor creature.
Want to go home?
No, you will. But you are his heir. How can Jason hope
Don't you see it, Linda? Carter Roosevelt is a very rich man. He's on his way here with a ransom to free me as of this moment.
But that doesn't work. I mean, even if he pays it, the whole idea of kidnapping, extortion, whatever you want to call it, is that the criminal has to be anonymous. Now, if everyone knows it's Jason...
Then, everyone who's a witness against him, including the old man, can't be around to testify.
Well, that means all of us. How?
That's how I got caught and put away. You see, he has this whole place mined. He can blow Broomwagon sky high with one touch on the button. And he has his ship standing by to escape on.
Well, how do we stop him?
Go. I'm going. I want to go.
Oh, shh. Soon now.
How do we stop Jason? Now, that's the question.
All right, everyone.
You took me from my room in the sky. I go back now.
All right, knucklehead, just stay where you
I
are.
want to go home.
Back up.
Go home to rest.
Get back, will you? Now, this is a gun.
I want to go home.
No, don't. He has a gun.
Away from me, will you? You idiot. Keep up.
Ooh, pain. Got pain. You did that.
Oh, my wrist. No, you got me. Get your hands off my throat. No.
Stay back, Linda. I'll get the gun. Linda, are you all right?
Yes, but he's still choking him. Get his fingers off Jason's throat.
I can't. They're locked tight.
Well, it won't make any difference. His pulse is gone. I guess that poor white man didn't know his own strength.
He strangled him?
Partly. But first I think he broke his neck.
I can't tell you how sorry I am to have exposed you to all this, Miss Barkley.
When I hired you, I had no idea.
Please, Mr. Roosevelt, don't worry about me.
Yes, thanks to my adopted son and you, and good luck, I have few worries anymore. Jason is dead, his gang dispersed, and my poor unfortunate son is better off dead. For the first time in 27 years, my wife can know a little peace. Now, my dear, what can I do for you who seems to have been a lucky charm in return?
Well, let me ask that question, Dad. Linda, I wanted to ask it the first day on the train. Will you marry me?
Now, there's the way a good Gothic mystery should end. The right people are alive, the ghosts laid to rest, and the heroine ends up by marrying the hero. Old-fashioned? Perhaps. But aren't we all looking back a little these days in the hope that the ones ahead will be a little more like the days gone by? I'll be back shortly. The guilt and the long agony of knowing she had concealed her real son brought freedom to Mrs. Roosevelt. The mental anguish relieved, more and more she found that she could walk and move. She and Mr. Roosevelt Sr. travel a good deal now. The younger Roosevelts have returned to New York and live as happy cliff dwellers. For them, a house is definitely not a home. Our cast included Betsy Palmer, Russell Horton, Bryna Rayburn, and Ian Martin. The entire production was under the direction of Hyman Brown.
This is E.G. Marshall inviting you to return to our Mystery Theater for another adventure in the macabre. Until next time, pleasant dreams.
Welcome. I'm E.G. Marshall. My wife doesn't understand me has always been a rather common complaint. And classically, it has been uttered by harried and put-upon husbands who insist that they stray far afield only to enlist the sympathy and commiseration that seems to be denied them at home. And yet, how often do any of these poor, deprived fellows think to put the proposition in reverse and say, I don't understand my wife? Our mystery drama, Crime of Passion, was written especially for the Mystery Theater by Sam Dan and stars Mandel Kramer. I'll be back shortly with Act One. An intelligent woman is a woman with whom one can be as stupid as one wishes. That was the opinion of a learned Frenchman. And since the French are the acknowledged authorities on the games that men and women play, we should listen very carefully. Certainly, history has proved that intelligent women have a hard time in this world, especially when they are married to shallow, heavy-footed men. George Parrish, a night watchman, is coming home very late one night. He opens the door to his apartment, tiptoes inside. He doesn't want to disturb his sleeping wife. But she isn't sleeping. She's very much awake. And there's a man with her.
Oh, Millie. Millie. What would I ever do without you?
Why, you two-timers!
George! George! You've got the wrong idea! Don't, George! Please don't!
Good morning, Phil. Am I upsetting your schedule?
You're destroying it, Tom.
Well, being a law firm's top client does give a man privileges.
Go ahead. The clock is running.
I have a case I want you to handle for me. The man's name is Parrish, George Parrish. He came home last night and found his wife with another man, and he shot her dead. I want you to defend him.
Why me?
Well, before you decided to get rich, you were the best criminal lawyer in the country.
Who is Parrish?
He's one of my employees. You know my motto, if you work for Cartwright Industries, be ever so high or ever so humble, you're my guy, and I stand behind you all the way.
And this is how you intend to stand behind Parrish?
Well, I'm a man of my word.
Why not? It's worth a fortune to you in labor relations, not to mention general publicity. You're an old fraud.
Yeah, sure. But when you've been a fraud for as long as I have, you really become quite sincere about it. Besides, I feel I owe him something.
What?
I feel guilty about it.
Why?
I want you to get on this thing for me, Phil.
Tom, you know how busy we are right now. I can recommend a top guy.
Phil, I want you.
A murder case. Just what I needed.
What's new in the paper this morning, dear?
Oh, just the usual bad news.
Oh.
I'm sorry, darling.
About what?
I know I shouldn't be reading the paper at breakfast.
Oh, that.
It's just that I have absolutely no time to myself during the day. I mean, it isn't right. We seem to spend so little time together.
I know.
The things just seem to keep piling up.
Yes, they do.
You're being very understanding about it, aren't you?
Well, I wasn't aware that I had a choice.
Well, you do manage to keep busy.
Oh, yes. There's enough to do.
That's what I always said. These days, women should be out there, doing. What do you know about this? That merger is actually going through. International is going to buy Amertex. How's the job coming?
Oh, it's interesting.
And how is Frank as a boss?
Oh, if you want to learn how to run an art gallery, there's no better teacher. Oh, something fascinating happened just yesterday.
Why would International want to acquire Amertex? I mean, they must know it's a company completely enmeshed in legal problems, or do they? Oh, I'm sorry, darling. What you were about to say?
Oh, it wasn't important. Will you be home early this evening? It's Bob and Gretchen's anniversary party.
Gee, I really don't know what time I can get home, darling.
Oh, do you have to work late again?
As if things weren't bad enough, Tom Cartwright threw something at me yesterday. Matter of fact, it's right here in the paper. Night watchman shoots wife in jealous rage. That's very sloppy writing. You can't tell which of them was in the jealous rage.
What does this have to do with you?
Well, Tom wants me to defend him.
Oh, a murder case. I thought those days were over.
Well, I never thought I'd miss them. But I tell you, nothing else can pump the adrenaline like a homicide.
I miss those days. You'd come home and spread out all the work on the dining room table, and I'd keep the coffee going and type up the notes. And just before dawn, many times, we'd go out to breakfast.
Well, you can only do that when you're very, very young.
Oh, you talk as if we're very, very old.
Well, we were very, very poor.
Phil, we were never poor.
Well, I mean, compared to what we have today.
I often wonder.
About what?
Oh, about everything. Phil, I'd hate to miss Bob and Gretchen's party.
Well, look, why don't you go on and I'll meet you there?
If I know you won't show up till very late. What'll I do if I get bored and I want to leave early? I'll be stuck.
Darling, it's just that I'm always so far behind. You could go by yourself.
I'd have to worry about a taxi late at night.
Oh, I know. Frank Hertford.
What about him?
Ask him to take you.
Oh, I don't know. I see enough of him during the day.
Frank is tailor-made for the job. He's the perfect extra man.
Well, he's really not much fun.
He doesn't have to be. All he has to do is be your escort. Thank you, guard. Parrish, I'm Philip Wilcox.
I'm your attorney. Parrish?
She's dead.
Yes, we know she's dead.
I killed her.
Yes, I have your confession.
Yeah, I confessed.
I want to read it to you.
I don't want to hear it.
You say, I came home early and I caught her with James Axford.
I don't want to listen to it.
They were both half-dressed. I knew they'd been together. I got so mad.
Don't read anymore.
I pulled the gun out of the holster. I was going to kill them both. I fired at her first, then I was going to shoot him too, but he fought with me. Then other people came into the room.
I can't believe she's dead.
Is this substantially the way it happened?
Huh? Oh, yeah. If that's what I said, that's what happened.
Did you mean to kill her?
I got so mad I couldn't control myself. Next thing I know, the gun is in my hand.
Well, you didn't exactly surprise them in what might be called a compromising situation, did you?
What's he doing there that hour of the night wearing pajamas and a bathrobe? Who can you trust in this world? Nobody. Just one person. My buddy, Tom Cartwright. Well, he wasn't my buddy exactly. He was my battalion commander. He knew the name of every guy in the outfit.
Now, Parrish.
After the war, you lose track. And he was an officer. I didn't have an easy life. A lot of things went wrong.
Now, look, here's what we have to establish.
I was hitting 57, 58, and what's the best I could do? Night watchman for this big company.
Did you at any time, prior to the moment that you saw them together...
These important guys come in, see, and this big white-haired fella, he looks at me and he says, "Hey, I know you, George Parrish, B Company, rifleman."
Did you have any reason to suspect they were having an affair?
Said, "Look, George, anytime you feel you're not getting the right deal, you just come and see me."
Parrish? I have to know this.
How he always was, Big Tom Cartwright. Hey, you must be the smartest lawyer in the United States of America, because that's just who Tom said he'd get me.
Answer this. Did you have any reason to suspect that they were having an affair?
No.
Who is James Axford?
A ruddy little guy. He lived down the hall. He'd sit around with us and drink coffee. You want to know how stupid I was? I'll tell you. I used to think it was great that he'd drop in to keep her company while I was working.
You mean you didn't suspect anything?
Suspect what? He looked like a light breeze could blow him right over. Besides, she wasn't all that young or great looking. I mean, how could I figure she'd even be thinking of that kind of thing? How could this happen to me? I tried to give her everything.
All right, Parrish. I think I have enough for now.
Maybe I should have spent more time with her. You know how women are. They want you around all the time, but what was I going to do? I had to work nights and part-time. I couldn't help it. Why couldn't she understand that?
Hello.
Phil, it's Tom. Now, I know it's a bit late, but actually it's only past midnight.
Oh, I guess I dozed off.
Yeah, I've been trying to reach you all evening. Did you see George Parrish?
Yeah, I did.
Well, how does it look?
It looks good.
Hey, that's great.
You know, in cases like these, you usually have to explain the gun. You know, if he didn't mean to use it, why did he have it?
Well, he had to carry it on the job.
Exactly. And that's a big plus. So we'll go for something in the neighborhood of guilty due to temporary insanity.
Well, I think that's exactly what did happen. So you're telling me that he'll do okay?
Unless something unforeseen comes up.
Like what?
If I could tell you, it wouldn't be unforeseen, would it?
I appreciate this, Phil. I want to help him. Oh, I'm sorry if I disturbed you. Good night.
Yeah. Good night.
Good morning, dear. Pour you some coffee?
Oh, please.
Oh, you look tired.
Well, I had a restless night.
You're always nervous with Case.
With Case?
Yeah, like a woman is with child.
Yeah, well, I'm with Case, all right.
Oh, tough one?
Well, it looks open and shut, but those are usually the ones that have a hidden booby trap somewhere.
Something bothering you about it?
Yes.
What?
Well, that's the trouble. I don't know what. You must have come home rather late last night.
Mm-hmm. I guess we all lost track of the time.
Oh?
Oh, it was a marvelous party. Everyone hated to see it end.
What time did it break up?
Oh, it was before midnight.
I was still up around midnight. I didn't hear you come in.
You know what happened? Frank and I walked home.
You walked home?
That's right.
All the way from Bob and Gretchen's? At that hour? Well, that was very foolish.
You're right.
Why'd you do it?
Darling, you're looking at this in the cold, clear light of the morning. But it was such a beautiful night. You have to admit that.
I'm afraid I didn't notice.
There was a kind of magic in the air.
Magic? What kind of magic?
Oh, you should know. You're the one who first told me about the magic in the night air.
I did?
Don't you remember? In the air of the night are all the gossamer dreams and fragile fancies. They wither and die in the glare of the burning, brilliant sun, but in the soft and kindly glow of the friendly moon. Huh. Oh, I often wonder. You know, you never told me. Did you read that somewhere, or did you actually write it?
I don't even remember.
I think you wrote it. You used to write a lot of poetry while you were going to law school. I remember you said that it was the only way that you could keep your sanity.
I was just a kid.
And one of the greatest lawyers in the world, Chief Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes, was a fine poet.
Margaret, getting back to this foolishness. I mean, walking all that way in the dead of night.
Well, you and I used to walk at night for hours. I remember.
Yeah, but those were different times.
Yes.
I thought you said you found Frank Hertford rather dull.
I never said that.
Didn't you say he wasn't much fun?
Oh, yes. But that's only during the day, at the gallery. He's all business there, which is good. But away from the gallery, he has an entirely different personality.
Really?
Yes. He's very lively and witty. There's a whole side to Frank Hertford that I've never been aware of.
On that line, let's take a break and see how things seem to be shaping up in our little drama. Of course, there's always the possibility that we might be reading a bit too much into what we've been hearing so far. On the other hand, we may not be reading enough. We'll just have to wait for Act 2 for a clearer definition. Would you happen to know offhand who it was that said, "Nature abhors a vacuum"? It has a scientific sound to it, so you might assume it was a physicist. But the fact is, it was stated by a philosopher. And he wasn't thinking of things like vacuum tubes and the like because they hadn't yet been invented. No. What he had in mind were human affairs and what people will do if their lives are empty.
Hi, Terry.
Hey, Phil. Late as usual.
Yeah, it's like old times. We're going to lock horns again.
Why don't you come downtown and really practice law?
Why don't you come uptown and really make some money?
When I get old.
Then you won't be able to enjoy it.
Say, I hear you guys are raking it in. However...
However what?
You're basically a one-client law firm. Now, what if you lose him? Lose Tom Cartwright?
We're too involved with everything he's got going. It's as if we were welded together. How could we lose him?
Well, the outfit that had him before you did lost him.
Thanks. You just made my day.
Yeah, all right. Now, getting down to cases.
The George Parrish thing now. This is the quintessential crime of passion.
That's your story.
Well, you admit that it's open and shut.
I don't have to admit anything.
Oh, why don't we save the taxpayers' money?
Oh? You want a plea bargain?
Look, why don't you ask for manslaughter? We can wind up with guilty because of temporary insanity.
Oh, how nice of you.
And for you, too. You get the word guilty in the verdict.
I'm going for murder 1.
You have to be kidding.
The public perception of these insanity things, it's completely negative these days. You see, man on the street thinks all you have to do after you kill somebody is have a smart lawyer claim you were temporarily insane and you beat the rap.
But I do have temporary insanity here.
Oh, do you?
Yes, I can get psychiatric testimony. It says so.
Oh, I can get psychiatric testimony that says you don't.
All right, so our shrinks cancel each other out. And what's left is this poor, pathetic-looking, put-upon slob. He's your hard-working, hard-luck guy who never got a break. And a war veteran, too.
That doesn't carry the cloud of youth.
He's got a Purple Heart.
Probably shot himself cleaning his rifle.
So, what?
Your client is lying.
Well, I believe him.
I don't.
Why not?
He walks into his house, all unsuspecting. And he's suddenly confronted by the infidelity of his wife. Now, in a sudden, wild, uncontrolled fit of rage, he shoots her.
You're stating my case.
And it's a lie. No man or woman, for that matter, is ever unaware of infidelity.
Come on, Terry. How can you say that?
You mean a fella doesn't always know his wife is being unfaithful,
How could he know?
Are you telling me if Margaret were having an affair, you wouldn't know about it?
Margaret would never have an affair.
Oh? Why not?
She's not the type.
Well, what is the type?
And besides, realistically, she's older.
Older?
Look, the truth is, why would anyone want to have an affair with Margaret? Have you seen her lately?
Well, as a matter of fact, at the gallery. See, my wife dragged me there to look at some art. Just last week. Oh, she looks great.
Yeah. Now, look, getting back to your basic point.
Which is, a man has to know that his wife is having an affair. He has to notice the change in her.
What change?
Well, she treats him better, or she treats him worse. She's either laughing or crying. She's light as a feather or heavy as a rock. See, but whatever she is different.
And you claim a man can see that?
Well, see it, hear it, feel it. Now, he knows it. But he may categorically reject that information.
Why?
Because if he faced up to it, he'd be forced to make a move. A move that might change the world he lives in. Maybe he simply can't handle it.
So if you're right, why didn't my client go on evading the issue? Why did he kill her?
Because you can only lie to yourself for so long and no longer. You see, you're taking a terrible psychological beating. You have to blow up. And suddenly, something happens which may be completely unrelated to the marriage, but it's a terrible trauma, and that's when a guy goes home and makes her pay for it.
Well, you'd better be able to prove that to our 12 good people in True.
That's why we're having a trial, isn't it?
Phil? Is that you?
Yeah?
You didn't say you were coming home, so I didn't bother with dinner.
Oh, well, Hey, look at you.
You like the dress?
I don't know. Well, it's a bit daring.
Oh, now, Phil.
Well, let me put it this way. You usually dress with an eye toward suggestion rather than display.
Well, I hardly think you could call this display.
Well, for you, it's certainly something new.
New? I've been dressing more or less like this since, it's been over a year now.
I never noticed.
Well, actually, Phil, you're very rarely home.
Well, it has been a hectic time. I'm sure you understand that.
Of course. You see me mostly at breakfast, and then I'm in my robe and my hair isn't done.
No, just wait a minute. What did you just say, that I only see you at breakfast?
Mm-hmm. We have breakfast together, and you leave the house. Then you generally come home very late for dinner.
Darling, we are swamped in the office.
Oh, of course. So when you do come home, I'm ready for bed. Sometimes I'm already asleep.
But you do look different.
I would hope so.
You haven't really consulted me. What I mean is, every time you buy a new dress or decide on a different hairdo, you'd always ask my opinion.
Darling, how long has it been since my hairdo or my clothes have been of any interest to you? Actually, you've become careless about my appearance. Certainly you've been much less strict lately, much less demanding.
Well, I have had some very important concerns.
Well, maybe my appearance isn't as important to you as it once was.
Oh, now, come on, Margaret.
Look, there's nothing personal in this. It's just a basic truism of married life in a great many marriages.
Well, now that you're all dressed up, are you going somewhere?
Mm-hmm. We're having a special showing at the gallery tonight.
Oh.
It's going to be quite an event. Why don't you come along?
Oh, I'm not sure I'd fit in with the sort of people who'll be there.
Well, most of them are very nice people.
And the truth is, I simply have to finish some work.
If you keep this up, then the work is going to finish you. Why not take a night off?
The truth is, honey, I'm just too tired. Do you have to go?
It's a very important evening. Frank is depending on me.
Oh.
Don't worry, dear. Frank will see to it that I get home all right.
Yeah. What's that, Miss Sidings? I have a lunch date with Tom Cartwright. Oh, that's right. Thanks for reminding me. Let's see now. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, from time to time we are shocked, rudely awakened. We look at our advanced state of sophisticated civilization, and we are horrified when we realize how thin is the veneer, the veneer of what? Already said civilization, sophistication, cultivation, advancement. Let's see now, where is that book? Why can't I ever find anything? Miss Tidings, where's my thesaurus? Why does everything always disappear? Please, I don't want any excuses. I just want the book. Oh, for crying out loud. Miss Tidings, I'm sorry. It's right here on my desk. And look, call Mr. Cartwright for me. Say that something extremely vital has suddenly come up and I have to cancel lunch.
May I help you?
Yes, I'm looking for Margaret Wilcox.
Did you have an appointment with Mrs. Wilcox?
Well, I don't usually make appointments with Mrs. Wilcox. I'm Mr. Wilcox.
Oh, how do you do, sir? Was Mrs. Wilcox expecting you?
Well, it's just that I happened to be in the neighborhood and thought I'd drop by and take her to lunch.
Oh, well, they're not here at the gallery just now.
They?
Margaret and Frank Hertford. I think they said they were going to Philadelphia to look at the work of a new artist.
Oh. Well, it was just a spur-of-the-moment thing. Thank you. Thank you very much.
How are we doing, Counselor?
Mr. Parrish, I have to ask you one question.
You sure should.
Did you have any idea that your wife had been unfaithful to you with this Axford fellow before you found them together that night?
You already asked me that.
Well, I'm asking again.
Well, I told you before. I never knew.
Is that possible?
Is what possible?
That a man wouldn't know?
Sure, it's possible.
Well, Parrish, in a thing like this, there are signs, unmistakable signs.
Maybe, but what do you do if you're too dumb to read them? Too dumb, too trusting, maybe too happy.
Now, listen, I'm your lawyer. You must tell me the truth.
I'm telling you the truth.
The worst thing you can do is lie to your lawyer.
Why do you keep saying I'm lying?
I'm not saying that you're lying. I'm only asking you not to do it. I'm building your whole case on the proposition that you didn't know what was happening.
I'm telling you the truth.
Now, just remember, if you're not, I can get blindsided, ambushed and destroyed in that courtroom. All I stand to lose is the case. I'll go on to something else, but you won't.
Look, do you think I'd have held still for it? I'm not that kind of a guy. When I found out about what she was doing, I put an end to it. Right then, right there.
Did you ever argue with your wife?
How can you be married and not argue with your wife?
Loud, angry arguments that the neighbors could have overheard?
No, never.
I mean, I have to make sure that they can't spring a witness on us to testify that he heard the two of you having some serious shouting matches.
Whoever says anything like that would be lying.
All right, that's what I have to know.
So, how does it look?
If you're telling me the truth, you've got a chance.
Hey, Phil. Oh. Been visiting your client, I see.
Terry, do you actually believe that you can get him on murder one?
Yeah.
You have to prove premeditation.
I know.
Well, it's awfully tough in a case like this.
That's true.
You're really sticking your neck out.
That's what your neck is for, buddy.
Well, you must think you have something.
You ever read a play by James M. Barrie?
Now, what are you trying to pull on me?
It's called What Every Woman Knows.
What about it?
Well, he makes a very big deal about how completely a woman understands the man she's married to.
So what?
Well, women don't have any monopoly on that kind of insight. They just brag about it more.
I still don't know what you're talking about.
If I were writing a play instead of constructing a case, you know what I'd call it? What Every Husband Knows.
Yeah? What does he know?
What doesn't he know? That is, once he sits down and really starts asking himself the right questions.
Well, what does a husband know? It does seem that many husbands these days know very little. Strangely enough, it would appear that there are those husbands who don't even know what their wives look like. So how can we hope for a deeper understanding. But is this true? Probably on a conscious level. But what's happening deep down there in the subconscious? That's where the action is. We have Act 3 for that purpose. We have the word wedlock, which is used to define the married state. Wedlock is derived from an old Gothic word which means a pledge or a contract. And that's what marriage is really about, no? A contractual agreement. But there's always a basic dissatisfaction with contracts in general these days. One of the parties is always looking to get out of it somehow.
Oh, Phil, you're home.
Yes, these days seems I can get more done here.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Had I known, I'd have come back earlier. I just thought you'd be out till late at one of your meetings.
What do you mean, one of my meetings?
Well, you do have meetings.
Well, I know, but you make it sound as if there's something disreputable about it.
Darling, are we going to quarrel?
You know, I stopped by the gallery today.
I heard.
To take you to lunch.
Oh, that was sweet.
But you weren't there.
Well, Frank and I went to Philadelphia. There was this marvelous new artist on exhibit.
You know, it's now 9 o'clock. The exhibition must have lasted till late.
No, just till 5. Oh, but it's such a lovely drive this time of the year. We enjoyed the foliage. You remember how you and I used to go out to the country and see how the leaves were all turning color? And then, of course, Frank and I stopped off at this marvelous little country inn for dinner.
Margaret, is that wise?
Wise?
I mean, people might...
What is it, Phil?
Oh, I just remembered I had Faraday look up a case for me, People versus Gibbs. I think there's an application there. I better call him right now.
Phil, you got a minute?
Oh, come in, Tom. Sit down.
Well, thank you. I don't see you at the club. I don't see you anywhere these days. And what's this? A sandwich at the desk?
I'm in the middle of a murder case, remember?
And you'll get him off, won't you?
Well, a man doesn't get off in a situation like this. He still has to pay a price.
Well, okay, a couple of years, maybe. That's the same as getting off, isn't it? Phil, you're worried, aren't you?
I always worry when I'm in court.
Sure. He killed his wife. But it was in a fit of sudden blind rage. You know, in that single terrible moment, his whole world collapsed. Now, he'd worshipped that woman. That's your defense, isn't it?
That's right.
Well, it sounds great to me. What could be wrong with it?
I don't know.
Well, are you saying there is something wrong with it?
I don't know that either.
And what's wrong with you?
Terry McLean.
Oh, your district attorney friend.
Mm-hmm. I don't like his attitude, Tom. He wouldn't have gone for first-degree murder if he didn't hold something up his sleeve.
Well, something like...
He's just a bit too confident.
Oh, come on. There are guys who can sit with a nothing hand and make you believe they're holding 4 aces.
Look, I know, Terry. He's got something.
What?
Premeditation.
George Parrish isn't that kind of guy.
What kind of guy?
Who'd put up with his wife fooling around. The guy with guts doesn't do that. And that's the thing George always had. He got the Silver Star. I was there when he earned it.
Look, we're talking about different things.
We are talking about a red-blooded guy who reacted in a way that's unfortunately all too human.
I used to think that myself. But it isn't so simple. Here you are in a well-ordered world. You become aware of something that threatens your entire existence. That is, if you choose to confront it.
Well, you have to confront it. You have no choice.
You do. You can choose to disregard it and pretend it doesn't exist.
Well, tell me, what real guy could accept a situation where he knows his wife is cheating on him?
A real guy who happens to be in love with her.
Phil, I don't know what the DA has, but you have to win this case. I am telling you that right now.
If Terry has premeditation, I'll have to perform a miracle.
Well, if that's what is needed, that's what you are getting paid for.
Do you mind if I sit down here?
It's a public bench in a municipal park.
Beautiful day, isn't it? Excuse me. I see you're busy with your own thoughts. I have no right to intrude, but I had this idea that I should talk to you because your name is Philip Wilcox, isn't it?
How do you know me?
Oh, you're a lawyer and a very good one. You're defending a man named George Parrish who murdered his wife.
Oh, you must have seen my picture in the paper.
At first I thought I'd visit you in your office.
Why?
But I didn't have the nerve. Then I noticed you would come down here and sit in the park for a few minutes each day at noontime.
What's on your mind?
I know something about the Parrish murder case that you're unaware of.
Oh, yes?
There was nothing between James Axford and Millicent Parrish. Oh, there was a great deal between them, but nothing carnal or fleshly or sexual.
How do you know?
Because of the type of man that James Axford happens to be. He was completely lacking in that type of orientation.
Is that a fact?
Yes.
Then why was he in her apartment at 2 a.m. in his robe and pajamas?
He needed comfort.
Comfort?
Yes. James Axford is a man who suffers from loneliness. He was unable to sleep. He was frightened.
Of what?
Of the world, of everything, of anything, of nothing. And so he went to her, and she spoke to him as she always did.
Always?
She was always ready with a comforting word, a cheering thought. She was so filled with life that she had so much to give. And the stupid, stolid, ignorant ox she was married to just didn't take any of it. He was never home, always trying to find a fortune. Didn't he know he had one in the house?
How do you know so much about this?
Oh, I'm sure by this time you know who I am. Yes, she comforted me. Toward the end, I had to comfort her.
Why?
She was worried about him.
For what reason?
He was afraid he'd lose his job.
But I know Tom Cartwright. Tom would never fire him.
Oh, but he did.
Why do you say that? Do you know it for a fact?
George must have been fired. That's why he came home and shot her. Funny. He says he shot her because of me, and I had never had anything to do with her. In that way. But in a sense, in a real sense, I was getting her ready for another man. I was awakening her to the possibilities of the world. A woman like her with all that imagination, all that life, she has so much to give. If her husband doesn't want to take it, she has to find someone who will.
Why are you telling me all this?
Oh, because I have a sense of humor. I'm a waiter. The other day I worked at a big party. The most beautiful woman there, I thought, was a Mrs. Philip Wilcox.
Mrs. Wilcox?
I saw she was there without her husband. The story is she goes everywhere without her husband. I saw how the men looked at her. So, who is better equipped than you to be the defense attorney in this type of murder case?
Tom, I have to talk to you.
Well, I can't now. I'm flying to Chicago.
Sit down.
Just wait a minute. You can't just barge into my office.
Tom, the day he killed his wife, did you fire George Parrish?
Now, what kind of a question is that?
If the answer is yes, my whole defense collapses.
There's no way a thing like that could come out, is there?
Oh, boy.
Well, who would bring it up? George wouldn't.
How did you fire him?
Oh, well, I called my secretary and I said... Oh, good Lord. And she must have called personnel.
Now it's a matter of record. No wonder my DA friend Terry's been going around with that Mona Lisa smile on his face.
I told you he got the Silver Star. It was for saving my life under fire.
Great. So why did you give him the sack?
Because he'd been stealing. Though I didn't mind. I mean, what did it add up to? A couple of hundred now and then. But the foreman and the other fellas, they were wise to it, so I had to stop it. Now, I said, George, you have to cut it out. If you need extra dough, just come to see me.
So shouldn't that have ended it?
No. No, he kept on stealing, taking advantage of me, making me look like a chump to the other guys. And so I called him in. I blew my stack and I said, "Get out of here." He turned pale as a sheet of paper. Well, I guess he must have nursed it for a while. Then he went home and he killed her. Who else did he have to take it out on?
The DA knows about it. He has to.
But you see, he didn't kill her. I did. I made him do it. And I should have given him another kind of job, but what? He wasn't good for anything else.
Tom, there's no way I can save him.
But you have to.
I cannot do the humanly impossible.
I don't recognize words like humanly impossible. And I don't have to, because I pay top dollar. And all I know is I want results.
Why, I'm glad you're home.
I thought I'd better be. I was in the courtroom today.
I didn't see you.
I heard you make the charge to the jury.
What'd you think?
I thought it was magnificent.
But it didn't help. I'm going to lose the case.
That's too bad.
What do I smell?
Chili.
Your special chili consolation dinner.
Well, if it were a victory dinner, it would be filet mignon.
How well you remember.
Oh, it hasn't been all that long ago.
That seems like another world, Margaret. You know, there was just no way I could save George Parrish.
I'm sorry.
I guess the jury will stay out all night just for the sake of form, but they'll come back and throw the book. Well, at least I saved myself.
From what?
From doing something later.
Something?
Something I wouldn't be able to control. Something I'd be forced to do.
Tell me.
No.
Should we have secrets from each other?
Yes. Certain secrets. There are certain things I don't want you to ask me, and there are certain things that I won't ask you about either.
I'm not sure I know what you're talking about.
Oh, I think you do. But we're going to end it, Margaret, because things will be different from now on. You know, I love the way you wear your hair. You're right, you know, I haven't been too aware of it. Tell me, when was the last time that we took a trip?
I can't remember.
Would you like to go somewhere this week?
Can you get away?
Certainly.
Won't Tom, your important client, be needing you?
Tom is going to fire me.
Why?
Because I will have lost the case.
Well, how could he fire you for losing?
Oh, he could, easily.
Just like that?
Yeah, well, it won't be just like that. It'll take a while. He'll start showing dissatisfaction with this, that, and the other thing. Before you know it, we'll be through. But losing the case for George Parrish would be where it all began.
Well, what are you going to do?
Well, for starters, I'd like to spend some more time with my wife. That is, if she's not going to be too busy.
I think I can find time for you, darling. Phil.
Yes?
About Frank Hertford.
I don't want to hear about Frank Hertford.
But I feel I ought to.
Darling, let's go inside and have dinner.
No. Let me put the chili in the freezer. This is the kind of dinner that calls for filet mignon.
And there the matter must rest. Mr. Phil Wilcox, an astute attorney and a capable judge of human nature, including his own, would agree wholeheartedly with the following dictum. If a man has a charming, attractive wife, and he pays no attention to her, he has only himself to blame if other men do. I'll be back shortly. The crime of passion, so frequently encountered in both literature and life, seems so sharply defined, so easily comprehended, so basic, so uncomplicated. But is it? Men and women are complex creatures who will always act in their own self-interest. And sometimes a sudden burst of blind fury can have been created by many years of clear-eyed preparation deep in the subconscious, where everything is finally decided for all of us. Our cast included Mandel Kramer, Carol Teitel, Earl Hammond, and Ian Martin. The entire production was under the direction of Hyman Brown.
This is E.G. Marshall inviting you to return to our Mystery Theater for another adventure in the macabre. Until next time, pleasant dreams.
Come in. Welcome. I'm E.G. Marshall. Have you ever dreamed of flying? Of course you have. Everyone has. It's as natural as thirst or hunger. Except when it is not you who's doing the flying by yourself, but are being carried by... But that's our story. Another gripping twist on a subject which refuses to die. The vampire. Our mystery drama, Nightmare's Nest, was written especially for the Mystery Theater by Ian Martin and stars Gordon Gould. Most of us, I imagine, accept the concept that certain things have been left out of our general makeup. We don't hit a baseball like Henry Aaron or a tennis ball like Jimmy Connors. We cannot play the piano or paint or develop the business acumen to become a millionaire. But most of us certainly expect that we will have equal emotions. How many of us could even imagine not being able to love someone? To be a person in whose personality that emotion had just been completely left out. This is the story of such a man, John Findlay Masters.
I've never really felt incomplete. That is, I never had till... But that would be getting ahead of myself. What I mean is that I have never been unhappy. Although I suppose I've not been very happy either. But content enough with my life, my dreams, my achievements, and my few avocations. As Father Dan McGovern liked to say of me.
Ah, you're the ultimate pragmatist, John, my boy. That's what keeps me coming by. I'll convert you yet.
What keeps you coming by is the sad delusion that someday, some way, you'll beat me at our weekly game of chess. Can I get you something to drink?
Oh, now that'd be nice. A little cherry would warm my heart if you'll join me.
By all means.
I wish I thought it could warm yours.
Dan, you'll never let go, will you? Why do I worry you so?
Because it's not natural to begin with. I mean, here you are, a man just turned 30, and you live like a hermit. You should be married with children.
Not my style.
At least you should have a woman who I mean, someone to cherish and love and...
Father, and you a man of the cloth? Are you advocating extramarital affairs?
Of course not. I'm less concerned with sex than with love.
Which only goes to prove what friendly antagonists we are. I am just the other way. One of the advantages of living in today's world. So let me put your mind to rest about that. And drink your sherry.
Somehow, it doesn't taste as good as I anticipated.
Well, that's a first-class sherry.
It isn't the wine that sours on me, it's you.
Why let it bother you?
Because because I feel I stand in loco parentis to you. Your father, rest his soul, was a long-time friend.
You puzzle and worry about me, Dan. You find me hard to understand. It shouldn't be too difficult. My father, who gloated over my mental capacities, my precocity in mathematics particularly, the academic honors I won that fed his vanity because I was his son. The endless hours he chained me to a chessboard, teaching me the game till I became the master. Pride in me, cold satisfaction, but never love. And, on the other hand, there was my mother.
Well, you can't say you didn't get it from her.
That was just the trouble. Too much. Like a dog that licks wildly at his master's face. Or all the girls who hung around after the football game. Or when we won the basketball championship.
Wait now, by the Holy Father. There's some hope for you yet. There is emotion, when sure I thought your soul was dead and buried.
Oh, don't be ridiculous, Father. I am a man of no emotions, because I don't need them, or believe in them, except as a destructive force. My motivations are scientific, in the realm of pure mathematics, sheerly practical. Come on, you finished your sherry. Let's get to the game.
Oh, no. A moment longer. Now, I don't feel much like chess tonight.
Well, you'd better.
Why is that?
It may be your last chance. I'm giving up my apartment. I'm going away.
Away where?
I found the perfect house. Isolated, remote, locked away from the world.
Oh, sure, the last place for you to go.
Oh, I need to be utterly alone. I'm coming near the verge of a breakthrough in pure mathematical theory that could upend the world.
Oh, dear God, would you listen to the man? Hasn't the world been upended enough already? Oh, John, I have a terrible premonition 'tis the worst thing you could possibly have done.
And so I came to live at Mayor's Nest, named for the man Mayor who built it. It should have been called Nightmare's Nest. But I had no idea of that, of course, that first afternoon, as Mrs. Denton took me on a tour of my new home.
I'm sorry, Mr. Masters, for the condition of the third floor. Most of the rooms here are small, old-fashioned servants' rooms with little light. And the others are storage, filled with old lumber. A lot of leftover trash that Mr. Mayor has instructed me to throw away. Family papers, old clothes, and the like.
What's that door at the end of the hall?
Why, that's Miss Stella's old playroom.
Is it large?
Oh, yes.
Well, let's have a look at it.
Nothing's been done here. After she died, her things were all taken away, too.
It looks perfect for me. That big gable window overlooks the garden?
Yes, it does.
Is it fully wired here?
Oh, yes, it's heated electrically. Mr. Mayor had 220-volt current brought up.
Well, then it's perfect. I may want to put in a computer. Quite a view, too. I didn't get a chance to really look at the gardens. It's beginning to get a little dark. What's that sort of walled-in area beyond the trees there?
That's the maze, sir.
The what?
Mr. Mayor was a very rich man. He had strange fancies. He was visiting in London at Hampton Court, is it? Where Henry VIII lived?
That's right.
Well, there's a thing called the maze there. You know, a place...
I know, a labyrinth of yew hedges full of dead ends till you find just the right path to the center.
That's right. Well, anyway, Mr. Mayor built one just like it for Miss Stella. For her and her friends to play in was the idea.
Fascinating. I'd like to go down and have a look at it.
Oh, it's getting a bit dark, sir, and besides, when the wall was built around the maze, the gate was padlocked, and I don't know where the key has gotten to.
Well, never mind. I can see it tomorrow. Let's go down to the second floor and decide on a bedroom suite for me, and then we can start thinking about dinner.
Very well, sir. Oh, Mr. Masters.
Yes?
I just hope you'll be very happy here.
I don't even ask that much. Content and undisturbed will suit me fine.
Good morning, Mr. Masters. You'll be ready for your breakfast?
Just juice and coffee, Mrs. Denton. I don't eat in the morning.
Oh, we have some lovely fresh eggs from the farm down the road.
No, thank you. You'll find that I'm a creature of habit. too late to change anything in my life.
Well, I heard you moving about, so I have the orange juice right here and the coffee nice and warm. Or, would you prefer some other fruit juice?
No, this is fine. But speaking of hearing things, though...
What? You heard something in the night?
Huh? No. I slept like a top. Now, I was talking about the hall. There's an echo there.
Oh, well, it's the tiles, sir. See, there used to be a big round rug there, but Mr. Mayor liked the tiles so much he had it taken up.
Well, let's get it put down again. The place is as cold as a grave and sounds like walking through a crypt. It's a pleasant day.
It's getting very chilly.
Nice dry chill. An invigorating day. And I need a good deal of air after last night.
I beg pardon, sir. You said you slept well.
I did, but heavily. I couldn't get any of the windows open in my room.
Oh, well, that's because the screens aren't in yet.
Well, still, if I hadn't gone to bed so late, I would have looked for you to ask you why on earth they are nailed shut.
Oh, it's just a precaution, sir. The trees grow so near the house that quite a bit of wildlife gets into the house unless the screens are up.
Well, then, let's get them up. Is there some sort of handyman?
Oh, yes.
You know, I'm fascinated by the maze. Did you dig up the key for it?
Oh, no, not yet, sir.
Well, there's no great rush. You must tell me more about it at dinner, or tomorrow. Because today I must get back to the house and get to work. I would like to get some windows opened.
It's cold this time of year, and the screens need painting. Now, if you could just wait a while...
Not too long. The house is as musty as a tomb. Let's get it opened up a little. What is it?
Oh, you left the front door ajar.
Oh, Mrs. Denton, don't worry. I realize there's an oil crisis, but a little extra strain on the supply...
It isn't that, Mr. Masters. Oh, we shouldn't ever leave anything open. There are things that can enter.
Things? Oh, you mean mosquitoes, flies, insects?
And there are other things.
Woodcocks, opossums, raccoons. We're that far out in the woods?
We're all alone here. Isolated like.
Well, as long as it isn't bears or anything we can't handle.
What is it?
I don't know. A funny dead smell. Oh, we must get this house open and let some air in. And
what?
I thought it was oppression at first, but strange reaction. It's depression. Doesn't make sense on a day when it's so clear and the cloud cover's so high. I never felt like this in my life before. Well, heavy, listless. No, what's the word? I know. Something I've never totally felt in my life. Even at my parents' funerals. Sad. Just unbearably, inescapably sad.
Oh, Lord, help us. I knew as soon as I saw the door open. And the moment we got inside, she's back again. You let her back in.
The ultimate pragmatist, suddenly in the grip of an unbearable emotion, and for no practical reason, certainly no natural one. So, by the evidence, it must be supernatural. Who is the she who disturbs the peace of this haunting, strange house? I'll be back as shortly as I can with Act 2. In the dark and gloomy hall, the huge, ornate staircase curving up behind his head like a giant question mark, John Masters, shaking off the depression that shrouds him, turns to the frightened, cringing little woman. Mrs. Denton leans against the heavy front door, whether for support or as if to bar its opening at the insistence of some outside force. It's hard to tell. Before he can speak, he has to take a deep breath to lift the crushing weight of nameless sorrow from his chest.
What she? Whom have I let back in?
Oh, I suppose you had to know sooner or later. I'll try to make it as short as possible.
Not in this echoing vault. Let's get away from sound and half-darkness. Here, the dining room will do. Now sit down, Mrs. Denton. You look as though you'd seen a ghost.
Thank you, sir. Oh, not seen. But I know she's here.
Who's here?
Oh, the poor lost little soul. Stella. Miss Mayer that was.
Tell me what this is all about.
Oh, it goes back over 10 years. And she was such a lovely little thing, Stella. Just 17 and bright and gay. And chipper as a little bird, always laughing and full of fun. Until Ram Gitano came to work for us. There were horses here then for riding, and he took care of them. And he drove Mr. Mayer in his car to and from the station. Oh, he was a handsome young man with black hair and white teeth and a dark gypsy skin. And it didn't take Stella very long to fall head over heels in love with him. And they would sneak away and meet in the middle of the maze. There's a little sort of Grecian temple there. There used to be a gazebo. And I was so worried, I hid myself away behind there one night after dinner.
Moshkadroka e Borodine Sherlukan Kisana.
What is that, Rod?
Darling, what do you expect from a gypsy? That's Romany.
What does it mean?
My heart and all my pulsing soul is yours, my only love.
Oh, how beautiful.
Yeah, if you go for that. Stella, baby, what difference is it how I say it? I'm crazy about you.
And you know I love you.
Well, you know I buy it, but with your old man?
I don't know.
Have you talked to him about us yet?
No.
What's the matter? Afraid he'll think I'm not good enough for his little chick?
I'll handle that.
I don't think so.
Oh.
All right, Stella, you can go. I heard enough on my way into the maze to know where we stand. I'll handle this from now on.
Crouched in my hiding place, I blame myself bitterly for not having been at the house so that I could have stopped this meeting. I could see, hear how hurt my little Stella was, and I wanted to come out and help her. I knew how wrong this man was for her, but I also knew Stella. I knew how deeply she could be hurt and how easily broken, so I froze, helpless.
It doesn't matter what you do or say, Daddy. I love him. And if he wants me, I'll have him. Any way he wants me.
Sorry it had to be like this, sir.
I am sorry it had to be at all. How long has this been going on?
Oh, for some time, Mr. Mayor.
If you have in any way...
I may not be Ivy League, but so far I'm a gentleman. No sweat there.
You had better not. So help me God, I'll drag you in for statutory rape.
I wouldn't advise it, Mr. Mayor. You wouldn't have a case. But nudge me far enough.
I'll nudge you, all right. Straight out and keep on going. You're fired.
You're making a mistake, Mr. Mayor.
My mistake was in hiring you. Never letting you get near my daughter. But from here on in, I'll make sure you don't have another chance.
You know I could tie you into a pretzel, Olaf.
Try it and I'll put you in jail where you really belong.
On second thought, maybe I'll just lay a nice fat gypsy curse on you. That's what you really object to, isn't it? My race.
I don't give a damn about your race. Or your color. Or up to a certain point, your creed. Simply that I can recognize a no-good, hands-out bum just as well as you can. I came up from nothing myself. Only I made my own way. I didn't climb over other people's backs to get there. Now get out and stay out.
I waited a long time before I left the maze, and by that time they'd gone to the station. And I was left to comfort and try to calm down a frantic little girl who was mad with grief. Oh, I should have slept in her room that night. Her bedroom was the same as you have now, Mr. Masters. But I was fool enough not to. The rest of the story I had to piece together from fragments spoken in fever by Stella during her long, last, puzzling illness. Late that night, Ram came back. He climbed the big tree outside her window. If you look, there's a branch cut off now that used to stretch near enough to reach the sill. Ram!
Shh! Help me in.
Wait here. Give me your hand.
Grab hold of the window frame.
Okay.
Don't let go, just for a moment. And keep out of my way. I'm gonna jump. Now. I'll close the window quick.
Are you all right, darling?
Fine.
Oh, did you come back to take me away?
Yes, but all in good time. Everyone asleep?
Oh, I think. Shall I get dressed?
Not yet. Now look, the safe downstairs. Your father still keep all that dough in it?
Well, yes. Well, there's nearly 10,000 there. I put away some for him this morning. Why?
You know the combination?
Well, of course, but...
Look, darling, let me hold you in my arms. And listen to me. If I'd gone away, if I hadn't jumped off that train when it slowed down for Traverse Crossing, I'd be gone out of your life, you know that?
Why?
Why? Because it's written in the stars. Or if you don't like my gypsy second sight, because by the time I ever made enough money to be able to afford you, old Moneybags Mayor would have talked you into marrying someone else.
No, Rob. I never would have.
Well, this way we're taking no chances. You're going down now to sneak open that safe for me and give me that dough.
You mean steal it?
Honey, when we're married, how much bread you think your old man is going to sling around like confetti? This is a drop in the bucket, but it's enough for you and me to get started.
Oh. All right. But then I'm going with you.
You can't, baby. Not for another couple of months, till you're 18 and your own woman. I'm going to cut out with this stake, get myself set, send you my address, and as soon as you're 18, you come a-running to me and we get married. Once that happens, you know he won't touch us. Honey, it's the only way we can make it.
Oh, Mama, I don't know.
I thought you loved me.
I do. But
okay, then. Prove it.
There. It's open.
Okay, honey. Now get on upstairs. You know nothing about this. Leave the rest to me.
Oh, I don't want to leave you.
Just for a little while. Trust me.
Oh, I'd put my life in your hands.
Who's there? Don't move till I get the light.
You kidding? Look out or I'll... Oh, what? You damn... Oh, you killed me.
You? I thought I'd seen the last of you.
The way it looks, that's what you bought.
Daddy, what happened? Oh, you killed him.
Still, I was only protecting my house. I didn't know who he was.
I don't remember. You killed me. Drak, Voldy, Neister, and Dermot Stark the Vampire.
What?
An old gypsy curse on you. I will not die till I replace my soul and one of you become a Vagram, Silphide Vagram.
And this all happened 10 years ago?
It would have been 10 years, nearly 2 months ago. And Stella, by that time, was under psychiatric care. Oh, the poor child. She just went to pieces.
Do you think her father knew that he was shooting her... Well, that he knew who the man was?
I don't know. I know that Miss Stella thought he did. She never spoke to her father again. Oh, this house was a terrible place to live in. We were all smothering under a terrible... a blanket of grief and shock. Sometimes it was hard to breathe.
That feeling at least I had just now.
And she lay upstairs in the bed you slept in last night and just wasted away.
No, Mrs. Denton, that's silly. In this modern age, with all our medical know-how, nobody just wastes away. Life can be maintained by mechanical means almost indefinitely, particularly a young life.
They couldn't keep her alive. They said it was anemia, pernicious anemia. They kept giving her transfusion after transfusion, but the doctors were helpless. The blood just seemed to break down and disappear.
She was buried in the little temple in the center of the maze.
And that's where she lies now?
No.
You mean she was reburied somewhere else? Her body was moved?
Her body was moved, but not by any earthly means. It just disappeared.
I don't understand you.
Oh, Lord, forgive me. I don't understand myself. I can only tell you this. After Stella's death, Mr. Mayor was a completely broken man. He couldn't stand this house, complaining all the time of the same smothering pall of sadness you felt today. But he wouldn't sell the house, not while his daughter rested here. So I was kept on as housekeeper, and every day I took fresh flowers to place by the coffin.
By his instruction?
Yes. There was no wall about the maze then, but you can imagine. Because I had loved her so. What a sad pilgrimage that was every day. She might have been the daughter I never had. So I would kneel there and pray. But after I'd learned to find my way blindfold to the center, I seldom thought of looking at the coffin itself. Until one day, I did. And
Mrs. Denton, are you all right?
I'm as right as I shall ever be again.
Are you up to finishing your story?
Oh, I'd rather show you, as well as I can. You wanted to see the maze. Well, now's the time to see it.
You found the key?
I've always had it. I never let it out of my sight. Shall we go?
I followed her to the maze. The lock, rusty and old, but apparently well-oiled, opened easily, and we threaded our way to the little Grecian temple at the center, Mrs. Denton leading. Inside the temple was a dais, and on it lay a carved, frescoed bronze catafalque. She brought me to it.
The lid is very heavy. It takes a strong man to open it. One day after she died, I came here with my flowers. The lid was standing open. I was appalled. And I stepped forward to look in. Open it yourself, Mr. Masters, and you will see what I saw.
Curiouser and curiouser, cried Alice as she wound her way through Wonderland. But this is a darker and more disturbing world than Lewis Carroll ever dreamt of. Even at high noon, as John Masters and Mrs. Denton look upon the coffin of a long-dead girl, the forces of darkness swirl and cloud about them. I shall be back shortly with Act 3. The little Grecian temple in the center of the maze is very simple. 4 ionic columns, perhaps 12 feet high, bearing a cupola roof. It is open on all sides, save for a low marble circular series of slabs at sitting height, supported like benches. In the center is a dais about 3 feet high, on the surface of which rests a bronze coffin, obviously maintained with loving care. There are no flowers.
Lift the lid. You need have no fear of disturbing the dead.
Very well.
It won't be so hard, because I am a foolish woman. The hinges are kept oiled.
There's nothing there.
Exactly. That's what I found all those years ago. A month after she had died and been buried.
I was annoyed. I had bought this house from the Mayor estate with a built-in housekeeper to guarantee my isolation and quiet from my mathematical experimentation. I realized now I should have questioned more closely the bargain I had thought it to be. But that die was cast. The problem now was to put all this nonsense out of my mind, and at the same time try to banish the stifling feeling of profound grief that kept sweeping over me from time to time. But within a day or two, with the weather warming and the screens up so we could open windows, that had passed, and I could get on with my work. Then suddenly, it returned more strongly than before. And on an impulse, I called Father Dan and invited him down for a weekend.
Oh, could we open a window, John?
They're as wide open as they can be already. Why? It isn't that warm.
Well, then, could we take a little walk in the garden, do you think?
I was waiting till tomorrow to show it to you, but maybe it's light enough. Why not?
There'll be a gibbous moon. It's a little over the half. And I'd like to see this maze of yours. Well, it's an amazing little labyrinth. I wouldn't have believed you could find your way in here so easily.
Well, it isn't so difficult. There are a whole series of little markers to lead you right, when you know where to find them.
Oh, even in this half-light? You must have come this way quite often.
Yes, I'm fascinated, naturally, by Mrs. Denton's foolish, well, you might say, legend that she's been building up.
Yes, of course. And I see there are fresh flowers by the coffin. I thought that had been stopped a long time ago.
Oh, I put some there yesterday morning before I picked you up at the train. A gesture. I don't know why.
To an empty coffin, huh? And it is still empty.
Well, naturally. But I have seen a picture of the young lady who should lie in it. I'll show you later. And she was a lovely child. I suppose that gypsy lover's relatives stole the body.
No. Now, why would they do a thing like that?
Well, how the devil would I... She was wearing jewels, rings, when she was buried. I can only surmise they robbed her for those. Or some kind of vengeance.
Did he have relatives?
Oh, Father Dan, I don't know. I told you it was a surmise. Let's get back to the house. I was in no mood for discussion when we returned to the house, which was unreasonable of me, since it was the main reason I had invited Father Dan down. But the mood of depression hung too heavily on me, and I wanted to be alone, to sleep, to just forget. I had no idea how long I had been lying in bed. I may even have slept for a while, but all of a sudden, I came awake, or consciously in control of thought. The moon, low in the heavens, cast a glow on the floor between me and my bed. And slowly, the moon glow misted between the window and me, twisted and swirled gently, and rose and formed into the figure of a woman, transparent as the mist, standing before me and moving towards me. Who are you?
I have come for you.
For me? Why?
Don't question it, my love. Just come.
Where?
Now, quickly. To the center of the maze. The center of the maze.
I didn't question it. Don't ask me why. Suddenly, I felt her lips on mine. Warm, promising, drinking all my heart's blood. And then she was gone. I, who have questioned every move, decision I'd entertained, I went like a child, and in the soft moonlight met her there. Was she beautiful, deadly, fascinating, irresistible? I can't tell you. She was all in white, swirling around her, and her face was concealed in a milky scarf that bound her head. I had a moment of annoyance almost. I have come here, but I don't know why.
Because I love you. And I want you to love me. Give yourself to me.
Give myself to you? How can I? You are a specter. You have no body, no being.
Give yourself to me. I will do you no harm. Take me.
I've never refused a woman yet. All right. Come here. We were no sooner in each other's arms than I felt myself lifted off the ground, carried by her, high up over the trees, mounting, sailing effortlessly, while in the moonlight I could see the country spread out below. And every so often, her lips pressed to mine, as I have never been kissed before, drinking from me, drawing me to her, lifting me with her to glide on the wind currents until...
Until what?
Until... I don't know what. I don't remember. Till I woke up in my bed this morning.
Well, feeling how?
Well, all my depression gone. Relaxed. Oh, with a strange lassitude for me, but also a kind of peace. So you see, I can send you back to town as relaxed as I am. I suppose I shouldn't have dragged you up here in the first place.
Very well, John. You may call me whenever you need me.
Well, I just needed a little contact with good common sense and human kindness to banish all the foolish dreams. I'm myself again.
You don't think, John, that maybe the things that are happening to you should make you question just a little what it's all about? I mean, us being here...
No, you don't trap me in that old argument again. I thank you for coming here. And I don't know what came over me. Maybe Mrs. Denton's graphic history. But I'm myself again. I said goodbye to my old friend, confident that he had no worries about me. I should have judged him better. During my next weeks of tranquility, I little realized how thoroughly he tried to save me.
Fascinating history, Father. And equally fascinating how far we've come from different approaches, backgrounds, educations to measure the same results. Never ceases to astound me.
Well, I don't know why. You study the human mind, Dr. Holland, I the human soul. Are they separated so far? But there isn't any time for philosophical discussions. I've had some letters and a couple of phone calls in the last few days that have exacerbated all my fears and brought me back to you.
Yes, after a period of relief, the massive depression started to reinvade the house, and the dreams of flying have returned with this unknown wraith.
How sick is he, Doctor?
There's a word. Let's say, is he schizophrenic? Possible. I can give you some other words and gobbledygook, which means something to me. I'd guess it's an obsessive compulsion reaction, if you force me to a clinical response.
Well, then how would you treat or how would you help such a man?
I can't give you an easy answer. Can I meet him?
Why not, Paul? Do you want to drive up there next weekend?
With the approach of the full moon, my white-clothed lady with a scarf about her head and face appeared to me in dreams, if they were dreams, more and more frequently. Together we soared, or seemed to soar, wherever I asked, or the winds took us, or she desired. And without my realizing it, day by day, I grew weaker and weaker. Each night, she would come to bear me up with her, flying high above all the world and its sins and its agony.
Darling, oh my darling, kiss me.
Yes.
Hold my lips, suck in your breath, and then release it into my mouth. We are one. We are one. You are mine.
When will we be together always?
Don't you know? It is already over. You have saved me. Now you must find love yourself. Oh, my darling, you grow heavy. Heavy. I can't hold you up any longer.
You must. I cannot fly like you.
I can't. I'm cold.
Thank you, Mrs. Denton, for bringing us here to the center of the maze.
If you don't know your way, it's hard to find.
So this is the tomb from which the body mysteriously disappeared.
Yes. I haven't seen the inside of the coffin myself.
Oh, you can open it if you want. There's nothing to see.
Well, for curiosity's sake, I'd like to look. But you are the one who should say if it's proper.
As I'm told, the poor child hasn't been there for 10 years. It's hardly likely we'd disturb her body or soul now. It's heavy, but...
Oh, sweet Mary, foot of grace. It's not empty any longer.
Huh?
She almost looks alive.
That's her. Oh, my little Stella. Oh, just as she used to look. Oh, my darling.
Oh! Dr. Harden, here. What is it? Here, behind the little temple.
Look there, that was my friend, John Masters.
Good Lord, he's dead.
Of course.
It must have been a terrible fall. The fractures are so multiple. But from where?
Good Lord, forgive me, I don't know. From the sky.
At least from some terrible height. And yet it's incredible.
What's that?
The damage is so extensive. I don't want to go into details, but there should be blood. And there's not a trace of it. Not one single drop.
They say the corpse of one who has become a vampire will always be found as fresh and full of blood as if it had arteries and veins that sustained life. I'll be back shortly. One further note on the vampire legend. The vagrom, the wanderer who seeks blood, having found it, joins the dead in peace. The donor, the victim, must wander between heaven and hell till he finds one to love and nourish him and grant him the sanctuary of the grave. An endless chain which always leaves one spirit unsatisfied and searching for rest. Look out for him or her, whoever you are, whatever you think your armor is. In the end, if there is one single chink, the vampire will find it out. Our cast included Gordon Gould, Rosemary Rice, Mary Jane Higby, Robert Maxwell, and Ian Martin. The entire production was under the direction of Hyman Brown. This is E.G. Marshall inviting you to return to our Mystery Theater for another adventure in the macabre. Until next time, pleasant dreams.
The CBS Radio Mystery Theater presents...
I'm E.G. Marshall. Those of you who have attended performances in the Mystery Theater know that there are certain tales that particularly entrance and intrigue me. They deal with the unusual, the unfamiliar, the unexplainable. So I have turned today to that master of mystery, Wilkie Collins, who has a habit of coming up with a story that always makes me say, why, that's not possible. Or is it? Our mystery drama, Shadows from the Grave, adapted from a story by Wilkie Collins, was written especially for the Mystery Theater by James Agate, Jr., and stars Christopher Tabori. One invariably associates the mysterious with lonely old houses, strange, small, inbred towns, peculiar characters. And I have to admit, this story follows that pattern. The man who told it to me is one X.Y. Zenith. You can imagine the kind of comments this poor fellow has gone through life with. Nevertheless, he didn't seem to mind when I said, XYZ, would you tell us about your extraordinary adventure yourself?
Having been christened Xavier Yardley Zenith and suffered with those initials all through school in California, I decided that when I got to the job age and became very good in photography, to open up a studio of my own. Call it Zenith of Hollywood. Not an unusual word in Hollywood, where everything is the top, the best, the ultimate, the zenith. 2 things occurred in April of this year which totally changed my life. 1, I planned to marry. And 2, I got a note from my Uncle George, who lived in Fresno, to come see him on what he called a matter of some importance. Hello up there, Uncle George. It's me, Xavier. What are you doing up in that tree?
Xavier, welcome, my boy. I've just about sealed up this hole in the tree. Here, give me a hand.
Steady.
Pretty spry for a man of my age, don't you think? You've never been up this way before, have you, Xavier?
Not since I was a child, Uncle George.
Oh, that's right. I remember now.
This beautiful house hasn't changed.
My father built it in memory of Queen Victoria.
Well, what happened to this big old oak? Struck by lightning?
No, it's the woodpeckers and squirrels that make all these holes. I've just had it with the noisy beggars. They jump from this tree to the top of the porch, and then they run along my bedroom window, making the most infernal racket you can imagine. So I've just been sealing up a few of their nesting places. Let them find apartments elsewhere, I say.
What about that big hole on the other side of the tree?
Maybe tomorrow I'll mix up some more cement. Say, boy, you always go around with 2 cameras hanging around your neck?
Photography is my business, so I'm always prepared just in case.
Huh? Is there a living in it? You sell your pictures?
I used to do better. Took shots of movie stars on location, did a lot of newspaper and magazine work. But work has thinned out.
I have a proposition to make you. Since I gather the picture-taking business isn't too profitable these days, I think you may be interested. Are you married?
I'm just about to be. This coming Saturday, matter of fact.
Good. Then what I have in mind might make an excellent wedding present. I'm not a rich man, Xavier, but comfortably off. 59 acres, orchards, gardens, this house, and a private family vault on the premises.
You're joking. You own a mausoleum?
Death is not a joke, Xavier. I am going to die in a week.
You? No, you're not. You look fit as a fiddle.
An ill-tuned fiddle. No, death is only a few days off for me. I've known it would come to this for some time, so it's no surprise. I'd like to show you where I'm going to be buried. Here we are. That's Carrara marble and Vermont granite. Those 2 locks on the bronze door are an invention of mine.
Mind if I take a picture of it?
Not at all.
There's no one in your private mausoleum now, is there?
No. There was. No. No one. Now, Xavier, I want you to pay particular attention. 2 keyholes and 2 separate brass keys. There is a very good reason for the 2 locks. When I am laid to rest inside this vault, Xavier, I don't expect I shall be trying to get out. But I do not wish anyone else to get in.
But why would a person want to?
It's not necessary for me to explain all that to you now, my boy. I turn the handle, and so. Not spacious, but not crowded. My final home.
Uncle, if you don't mind, could we go back to the house now? I'm not at my best in mausoleums.
All right. I've shown you everything. We'll sit ourselves on the porch, and I'll tell you what's on my mind. Have you ever sat in a porch swing, Xavier? Comfortable?
I love these old swings.
Xavier, I have no choice. You are my only living kin. There is no one else. I'm leaving all my worldly possessions, this house, the contents, the grounds, everything to you, on one condition. You must live here, and every day, every single day, mind you, you must go to that mausoleum and make certain there's been no one tampering with the locks.
Uh-huh. And that's the only condition, Uncle?
The only one.
I certainly appreciate your generosity. Can I think it over and let you know? I'd like to talk it over with Catherine.
Absolutely not. You're going to agree right now.
But, Uncle...
But what? You can have your Zenith of Hollywood office right here. This place is plenty big enough. You can turn the solarium into a studio if you like. I don't care. I won't be here. It's all decided then? Good. I'll have Henley take you to the top of the hill. A good view, and you can see most of the property. Have a tug at that bell pull, will you, Xavier? My dear boy, you don't know what a relief this is. My fate lies in your hands.
Wait just a moment, Uncle. I haven't agreed to this inheritance yet. But if I do, and I find someone's been at the locks of that mausoleum, what should I do?
In my desk in the library, bottom right-hand drawer, is a letter of instructions. The envelope has one word on it. Joshua.
Did you say Joshua?
But, unless someone has been trying to break in, that letter must never be read.
You rang, sir?
Yes, Henley. This is my nephew, Xavier Yardley Zenith. He's going to be living here. I want you to acquaint him with the property.
Very well, sir.
Goodbye, Xavier. I shall not be seeing you again. Have a good walk. Well, my dear Joshua, your old friend George Zenith has found a way to outwit you. Do you hear me, Joshua?
That's exactly what he said, Catherine. He stood looking out of the window at the tree he'd been cementing, talking to someone called Joshua, who, of course, wasn't in the tree. It was most uncanny. And then I left the room with Henley, the butler.
How well do you know your Uncle George?
Only slightly, I'd say.
So then you have no idea what he meant by, Joshua, I'm going to outwit you now.
Not the vaguest. But the important thing is, Catherine, do we want to spend the rest of our lives in a Victorian white elephant with a cook and a butler?
Our lives?
Well, that's the deal if I accept. I have to guard that mausoleum every single day.
Darling, let's forget about this crazy Uncle George of yours. We're getting married Saturday. That's enough to think about for now. If your uncle wants to leave us his big old house in Fresno, fine. I love old houses, especially when it's a free gift. You didn't promise anything, did you?
No. I didn't. Saturday, Catherine and I tied the knot. Nothing fancy, just a few friends at the registrar's office on Hollywood Boulevard. About a dozen of us drove out to Laguna Beach for a wedding breakfast, and we just got around to toasting one another in California champagne when my service tracked me down and left a message that Uncle George had died, and would I come back to Fresno.
I'm Father Daly, Mr. Zenith. Your uncle came occasionally to our church.
Father Daly, this is my wife, Catherine.
How do you do? I'm sorry this sad occasion has brought us together. Not a very auspicious first married week, is it?
It's hard to believe. He seemed so healthy, and when he talked about being dead in a week...
Did he?
Yes. I thought it was his macabre sense of humor. How do you suppose he knew?
Well, if he intended to take his own life, then quite naturally he would know.
Well, surely no one thinks...
My son, no one knows.
When is the funeral service?
Well, there isn't going to be one in the strict sense of the word.
No funeral? But why not, Father?
Well, I'm afraid Mr. Zenith's uncle may not have died a natural death. The medical examiner said an overdose of sleeping pills.
Oh, but couldn't that have been an accident? I mean, he told me he had a lot of trouble sleeping.
Oh, of course it could have. Which is what the coroner decided, death by accident. But so long as there's the slightest suspicion, which you have rather confirmed just now for me, I cannot bless the grave.
I could bite my tongue for telling you what he said, that he'd be dead in a few days.
Had you kept your uncle's intentions secret, that indeed would have been a mortal sin.
Yes, Henley. You wish to see me?
I do, sir. Cook and I want to leave.
You wish to leave this house? But why?
While your uncle was alive, there were some very peculiar things going on, but out of loyalty, we just couldn't go.
Peculiar things that frightened you?
Oh, yes, indeed, sir. Strange voices and goings-on and awful shrieks, like someone being attacked. Terrifying, if you ask me.
I quite agree with you. Have you heard such noises since my uncle passed away?
No, Mr. Zenith.
Well, then I suggest to you, the noises died with him. Now, I'll double your salary, Cook's also, and I don't want to hear any more about your leaving.
Well, you put it that way, sir. We'll be happy to stay on.
Every day, I'd go out and check the locks on the family vault. Catherine and I started making over the solarium into a studio, and I ordered equipment for a darkroom. But then, one night, I had a strange dream.
Xavier Yardley Zenith.
Is that you, Uncle George?
Why didn't Father Daly bless my coffin?
I wanted him to, Uncle, but he wouldn't. He said there was some question as to how you died.
You must insist he bless the coffin. I cannot rest until he does.
Uncle George, am I really talking to you? Or am I imagining things in my sleep?
Promise me you will make Father Daly bless my remains. Otherwise, I am lost. I am lost.
To sleep, says Hamlet, perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. Our friend Xavier Yardley Zenith has surely been given pause. His uncle dies mysteriously, then appears in a dream giving orders, exacting promises. Where will it lead? Where will it end? I shall return shortly with Act 2. It has been an enigma for thousands of years. Are ghosts an illusion, a projection of what one wishes to see, or do they represent some ephemeral link between the world of the dead and the world of the living? The problem that faces Xavier Zenith is to persuade a member of the ministry to bless the remains of a man who may have committed murder. For indeed, that is how the church regards suicide.
Catherine, I tell you, Uncle George's ghost said it as clearly as I say this to you. Father Daly must give me his blessing. I cannot rest until he does.
Honey, can I say something? I appreciate this inheritance, the house, the grounds, money to run it and have a butler and a cook. I never in my wildest dreams did I ever think I'd have that. But on the minus side, there's all this infatuation with death. That mausoleum, which has to be guarded as though it were Tutankhamun's tomb. And now you having nightmares about your uncle. Xavier, it's not healthy.
What am I to do? I gave my word.
Well, what about your career? You're a little young to retire to a gingerbread house in Fresno and play nursemaid to ghoulies and ghosties.
Oh, we're going to make a great studio out of the solarium. And then that enormous closet, turning it into a darkroom. It'll be great.
You don't understand me, do you? You've got to get out into the world and take pictures, Mr. Zenith of Hollywood. But having always to be one night away from this place so you can check the locks on a dead man's tomb is going to hold you back.
I told you all this before we married, so don't throw it in my face now.
What's the matter with you, Xavier? Have you no will of your own? Why, a month ago, if I told you that a ghost came to me in my sleep, you would have laughed right out loud.
I'm not laughing now.
You really believe you saw him, don't you?
Of course I do. I was there. He was there. I heard him.
And you've decided to stick it out here for the rest of your life, is that it?
If I have to, I will.
I think I'd better leave you alone until you cool off. I'm not letting any dead uncle get in the way of my life. And I mean it.
Catherine did mean it. Next thing I knew, she'd lit out and went back to L.A. I knew where to find her all right. At her mother's. But I was darned if I'd go running after her.
My dear Mr. Zenith, my hands are tied. The church simply cannot acknowledge any untoward death.
Father Daly, for 3 nights running, Uncle George has appeared to me at night saying, "Help me lie and rest. I cannot until Father Daly blesses my coffin."
Xavier, may I call you Xavier?
I wish you would.
My boy, you and I are both modern men at the edge of the 21st century. For you to tell me that you're being visited by your uncle's ghost, while I won't discount it as a possibility, it's much more likely to be your own conscience worrying you to such an extent that you can convince yourself that you've seen him. You tell me it happens when you're asleep. I say to you, yes, it could, but that still doesn't make it any more than a dream.
Last night, he said I should read some of the books in his library, and I would understand.
Go read your uncle's books. And if this brings you peace of mind, then you'll know whether his appearances are fact or fancy.
That's just what I aim to do, Father.
You rang for me, sir?
Yes, I did, Henley. Come into the library and shut the door behind you. Did you know my uncle was greatly interested in black magic?
Well, I did tell you I was aware something strange was going on. He and Mr. Tree, they did some kind of... I don't know what you'd call it.
Mr. Tree?
A friend of your uncle's. They spent a lot of time together, and then a year ago, Mr. Tree went away.
Can you be more specific than something strange?
Well, sir, there'd be a lot of candles. Hundreds, in fact. They'd have them all burning. And there'd be incense and chanting. Right here in the library, Mr. Zenith.
I've been reading these books, and what amazed me was how many of them deal with the power of black magic.
I remember him asking me to bring home a cup of holy water from the church, and I said to him, well, sir, you're supposed to go to church in person and bless yourself with holy water, not bring the holy water here. And your uncle said, getting the holy water is the easy task. I have to get the blood of a child to mix with the water.
Henry, did you ever find out what it was for?
No, I didn't. I didn't ask. And I didn't steal the holy water from the church either.
Henry, You strike me as a sensible man. Will you do me a favor tonight? I generally take a walk in the garden after dark. Perhaps you'd walk with me.
Well, certainly, sir. I see you brought your camera, Mr. Zenith. Can you take pictures with only moonlight?
Oh, yes. Film is so fast nowadays, I could get a picture of you at 20 feet by the light of one match. Now, this part here, where we're walking, is this also part of my uncle's property?
I should say your property, sir. This is all part of it.
And that brook, too? Okay. Let's walk to the other side across this footbridge. The path seems to continue downstream. Over there. What's that little stone building?
Oh, that's the mausoleum, sir.
Oh, so it is. By moonlight, I'm afraid I'm a little discombobulated. Oh, wait. That's a good shot from this side of the brook. Mausoleum reflected in the water. Yeah, I think I got it. Henley! What's that?
What's what, sir?
Figure of a man. I just saw him in my viewfinder. Then he disappeared.
Where, sir?
There. Again. Can't you see it?
Yes, there was someone.
He's moving away from the mausoleum. You see him? He's wearing a long cape almost to the ground. Can you see?
A long cape? Oh, no. Excuse me, Mr. Zenith, but I must go now.
No, it's just a minute. What is it?
Sir, will you please let go of my arm?
Yeah, I will when you tell me. Now, do you know that man?
He's come back. Oh, I never thought we'd see him again.
Henley ran off. I followed the man in the cape, keeping my distance across the brook. He seemed to glide over the earth. I ran across the footbridge towards him, and then he disappeared. I turned back to the house, and suddenly there he was, standing against a big oak tree. And then he seemed to melt right into it.
I do apologize, Mr. Zenith, for my behavior last night, leaving you like that.
Yes, I was rather puzzled.
You're a photographer, sir, and so I have something to show you. This snapshot. Do you see that man?
Yes. It's very like the thing I saw last night, a hunched-over man with a long cape. It looks like he's talking to someone. Someone out of camera range, possibly.
Well, that's the peculiar part of it. He was talking to someone. I took a picture of the two of them. But the other man's not in the picture.
Are you saying this person we can't see was there but didn't register on the film? I don't think I understand.
Perhaps it's better that you don't, Mr. Zenith.
What about the man whose picture you got? Do you know him?
It's Mr. Joshua Tree, sir, when he used to live here. And now he has come back. That's why I must beg you for your understanding and indulgence. Mrs. Henley and I simply cannot stay for a moment longer.
But even if it is Mr. Tree who's come back, why must you leave, Henley?
I can't say any more. I really can't. But if you want my advice, Mr. Xavier, if you value your life, you'll leave here also.
When I developed the shots I took of the Cape figure, they were identical to Henley's snapshot. That night, from the darkened library, I watched the oak tree. At midnight, the figure in the cape appeared. I crept out of the house, following it to the door of the mausoleum. This is what Uncle George must have meant. I reached forward to stop the man. Something hit me on the head from behind. I blacked out.
Xavier, are you all right?
Oh. Catherine, what are you doing here? Am I dreaming?
Don't ask so many questions. That's quite a bump on your head. Here, let me help you.
No, I can make it all right. Oh. Whew. Whoever hit me wasn't kidding.
Just stop talking and lean on me, and we'll walk slowly back to the house.
Catherine, This gets more mysterious every minute. But the biggest mystery is how you just happened to show up.
I'm your wife, remember? I decided I was being stupid, so I came back.
No, darling, you don't have to hold me up. I can make it all right.
You're not going to trip and fall again while I'm around.
Catherine, I didn't fall. Somebody hit me.
Xavier, what are you talking about? I saw you at the mausoleum when I came out of the house. I saw you step back and fall over. There wasn't a soul in sight.
You didn't see anyone near me?
It's after 2 in the morning. When we get back to the house, to bed you go and not a peep out of you.
You don't believe that I was hit from behind?
I believe my eyes, and they didn't see a thing.
Father Daly, who is Joshua Tree?
Where did you hear that name?
Henley told me, but not much else.
Joshua Tree. He was a man who, to the bottom of his heart, if he had one, was basically evil.
How did my uncle come to know him?
Well, he just turned up about 2 years ago. Your uncle took a fancy to him and saw a good deal of him, which I am afraid was the most unfortunate thing he ever did in his life.
Why do you say that, Father?
Joshua Tree was the very spirit of the devil himself.
I show you a photograph I took near my uncle's vault the day before yesterday. Is that Joshua Tree?
Well, I can't really make out the face, but the cape and the angle of the head, very similar, I'd say. But of course, how could it be? He disappeared a year ago.
Father, here's another picture. Is that the man?
Yes, that's him. You didn't take this picture, did you?
No. It was given to me by Henley. He took it. Now, if that's Joshua Tree, you notice he appears to be talking to someone, but there's no one there.
Oh, yes, there is. But the camera can't record an apparition.
You mean Joshua Tree was talking to someone, but we can't see him?
Because, my dear young lady, that invisible thing is a familiar.
What's that?
A familiar is an evil spirit visible to very few. The devil can see him, as can a sorcerer's apprentice.
So you were saying Joshua Tree was such an apprentice?
Xavier, are you in here?
There's nothing here. I'll try this drawer.
What are you doing?
There's nothing.
What do you mean, nothing?
I mean, there's nothing in any of my uncle's desk drawers. And he told me there was.
Xavier, why don't you answer me?
Because I don't have any answer. Let me see if I can get under this desk. Knock the wood. Maybe there's a secret drawer. Oh, yes, it's hollow here. Listen. One of these drawers is short. Behind it, there must be. Yeah, here. I'll pull this drawer up, and I'll put it on the floor. Then, I reach back inside. Yes, I feel something. An envelope. Well, here she be.
How did you know it was back there?
Before he died, last time I saw him alive, Uncle George told me that if somebody was tampering with his mausoleum, I'd find my instructions in a letter with the word Joshua written on it. To whom it may concern... Oh, no. Oh, no. Murdered. He killed him. Lord in heaven, what are we to do now?
The ghost in the play Hamlet says, I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain term to walk the night, till the foul crimes done in my days of nature are burnt and purged away. Is it so with our Uncle George? Is he also doomed to eternal unrest until his sins are purged and burnt away? With the end of uncertainty, I shall bring you Act 3 when I return shortly. It's all very well to pooh-pooh the occult, ghostly apparitions, phantoms that haunt, the deceased who cannot find peace until they find love or are forgiven their earthly sins, etc., etc. But the fact remains that time and again psychic researchers have agreed there are manifestations that defy and disobey nature's laws. And whether we like it or not, the unexplained does exist.
I shall never forget that evening, for even as I stood there, the letter of confession in my hand, Catherine waiting for me to read on, we were both suddenly so overcome by the cold I had to light a fire. And this was late July, mind you. We needed a fire, we lit candles. Something compelled us to light dozens and dozens of candles.
I feel warmer now. It's seeing the flames, I think. Go on, Xavier, read your uncle's letter.
To whom it may concern, especially you, my dear nephew Xavier, I fear they have come to get me. They've appeared at the door of my mausoleum, or else you would not be reading this letter.
Stop.
Uncle George. Catherine, do you see him?
Yes. Is that your...
Don't be alarmed, my dear young lady. I'm sorry we did not meet before, but only your husband can help me.
Is this true? Am I really hearing this?
Xavier, you must find Joshua's body and destroy it. Burn it. You see, I had to kill him. I put his body in the crypt and then it disappeared.
How horrible.
Catherine, Joshua Tree's death was not half so horrible as his life. I was a fool, a lonely old fool. I submitted to his black magic. I subordinated my will to his and became a crawling, craven creature. I lost control of my mind. It was all the doing of the hellish creature he conjured up from the world of the damned. His familiar.
Uncle, if Joshua Tree's body is hidden somewhere, how can I find it?
We will try. Anything to help you, Uncle.
Persuade Father Daly to bless my grave. Help me, Xavier. Help me.
I'm glad you finally saw him too, Captain. Oh, those heavy summer storms. We better check the library windows. I'll do the ones on the side, Catherine. You make sure the ones facing the front are tightly shut.
Look! The fire in the fireplace.
It's going out.
How strange.
Well, it must be the downdraft blowing down the chimney. Now the fire's gone out.
Oh, the candles are going out.
Must be some strange air circulating in this room. Let me get the electric lights.
The switch is by the door.
Well, that's funny. Nothing's happened.
Can't you turn the lights on?
No way. Well, that happens often in the country. Get a big storm and the electricity just shuts off.
I'll look out the front library windows and see if there are lights in the other houses down the road. Xavier, come here. There's someone out there. Look, pressed against the big oak, a man in a cape. And next to him, a tall kind of man. They're both huddling against the trunk of the tree, trying to keep out of the rain.
Catherine. The tall one. It's turning around from the tree. It's looking right this way. Can it see us?
Oh, what a hideous face. Like death. The eyes. Do you see those eyes?
Now it's beckoning to the man in the cape.
I see him. Is that Joshua Tree?
In spirit. For I'm sure now where his body is.
Where?
In that tree. That's why Uncle George was so haunted. Oh, it's all clear to me now. That time, I followed Joshua Tree to the mausoleum. They were trying to get at the corpse of Uncle George. It was the familiar who knocked me down.
Am I imagining it? But both of them have come much closer to our picture window.
Hello?
Father Daly, is that you?
Yes?
This is Xavier. You've got to come over to my uncle's house. You've simply got to.
My boy, you sound quite upset.
Father, I implore you, come now. Catherine and I are here alone. Only you can save us.
Give me that phone. Father Daly, this is Catherine Zenith. There are 2 creatures outside the library window right now. They're not real people, Father. I have a very strong feeling they are not human.
2? Did you say 2?
At this moment, they are pressing their faces against the glass of the library window. The hands are clawing at the glass as if they wanted to break through it.
Is one of them wearing a cape?
Yes, it is. Father, come quickly. Help us. Help us. They're raising their hands now and pounding at the glass. Ah! They're coming after us.
We ran out the back door into the raging, stormy night, lashed by rain, not knowing which way to escape. The only path through the garden led right to the mausoleum, and before we could stop ourselves, we were practically on top of it.
It's there. It's standing at the door of the vault.
Grab my hand, Catherine. Hold on. We'll run for the brook.
Where are we going?
Into the water. Come on. It's not deep, Catherine. We can walk it. Stay in the middle of the brook with me. You see, these evil spirits cannot follow humans into water. If we just keep moving, it'll give up. I'm sure of it.
Oh, I hope you're right. It's got to give up before I do.
I was right. The thing gave up, finally, and by the time we'd climbed to shore, it had gone. There we stood, the rain beating down on us from above, and our legs and clothes soaked from the brook. Somehow, we found the main road to town and ran towards it.
Oh, there's a car coming. I see headlights.
Let's stand at the wayside of the road. After staying alive this long, I don't want to be hit by a car.
Xavier, Catherine, what are you doing out here?
Oh, Father Daly.
Oh, don't answer me. Just get in.
We've got to get back to the house.
All right. Close that door and let's go. Now, tell me, you two, what are you doing standing in the road wet from head to toe?
We ran from the house to get away from them. They actually broke through a plate glass window.
That's most peculiar.
Peculiar? It was horrifying.
Why do you say that, Father?
Because the spirit of Joshua Tree and his familiar are not after either of you.
Well, they certainly gave a good imitation.
You don't seem to understand. These creatures, the dead and the spirit they've called up, they're satanic twin, in fact. They're not after living persons. They're on the constant lookout for the newly dead.
Wait till you see the broken library window, and then tell me if there aren't exceptions.
Where are they now? It's time I wrestled with the devil.
What will you do?
I shall quiet the demons with my crucifix. There's only one way to drive out Satan, and the church has been doing it for centuries.
Father, look. The vault door's open. Someone's coming out.
Not someone, but some things. They're carrying out your uncle's coffin. Stop! I charge you, archfiends of Hades! Thou hast entertained familiarity with Satan, the grand enemy of God. I charge you! Put down that body and begone!
Father Daly advanced upon the 2 creatures, holding his crucifix in front of him. The familiar and the spirit of the murdered Joshua Tree halted, released the coffin, and ran. Father Daly and I carried Uncle George back inside the vault and closed the doors. It came to me in a flash. The big oak tree. It was there we would find the source of the evil.
You are right, Xavier. I can see their shadows. I'll hold them back with my crucifix.
Somewhere inside this oak are the remains of the man my uncle killed.
When we find them, I suspect they'll be wrapped in that long cape he wore.
There's a sizable hole on the far side. When I first came here last April, my uncle was up there cementing up some holes.
Since he knew Joshua Tree's body had been taken from the mausoleum by the familiar, your uncle might have suspected it was in this tree.
I don't look forward to finding a pile of decomposed bones. What do we do with them, Father?
Burn them.
I'm glad Catherine's in the house. Don't know how she would react to a funeral pyre.
We have no choice.
Look, Father. The familiar. It's still there.
Its minutes on earth are numbered. Once we have destroyed the body of Joshua Tree, what held it here no longer exists, and the familiar must return to the black beyond.
And Uncle George must have known that his body could be invaded after death. And he would have had to walk the earth forever with this familiar.
When I find the remains, I shall light the fire to them and hold high the cross.
But what about Uncle George?
I shall go back into the mausoleum and bless the coffin. Requiescat in pace.
The flames consume the phantoms from the grave. The good father returns to the tomb and blesses the coffin. Will there be deliverance for the uncle? Yes, released from wandering the earth. But in the dimension of the beyond, will the spirit of the murdered sorcerer allow his murderer to exist in peace? Or will Uncle George discover his eternal torture is just beginning? I shall return shortly. The ghost of his father is real to Hamlet. Banquo's ghost is real to Macbeth. And even if you or I cry out as they did, hence, horrible shadow, unreal mockery, hence, can we make specters disappear? Defend ourselves from the unknown as we may try to. The battle of angels and devils goes on. So close not your eyes. Remember, all is possible. Our cast included Christopher Tabore, Fred Gwynn, Betsy Beard, and Court Benson. The entire production was under the direction of Hyman Brown. This is E.G. Marshall inviting you to return to our Mystery Theater for another adventure in the macabre. Until next time, pleasant dreams.